Welcome to Modern Mystic Messages and happy Sunday to you, everyone. Today is Sunday, October the 26th, 2025, and I am so glad to be here. And I hope that we all have a good session tonight. I hope everybody's doing well. I'll give it a little time for some folks to come into the stream, and then we'll get rolling. Hey, Michael Stevens, welcome, welcome. How are you? Happy Sunday to you if it's still Sunday in your part of the world. You need my opinion? Sure, go ahead. You know how we do here. This is your gig, so let me. What's up? What's up? Hit me with it. You went to Pride, and what happened? Hey, Natalie Rose, welcome. Happy Sunday to you too, love. I'm waiting a minute, Michael, because I'm assuming you have some kind of a question or statement or something coming after that. Um, Other than you went to Pride, because like you said you wanted my opinion on something, and then you just said I went to Pride. Happy Sunday, Shawanda Sheree. Have a beautiful, blessed week ahead of you as well, my dear. Welcome. Would it be a good idea to ask your barber to make your barber's massage longer and tip him more if he do so? Unless the barber offers massage as a service, I think that's something you would have to take up with a massage therapist, Michael. Typically, like when you do hair and nail services, I know when I go get nail, well, I haven't been in a long time, but if you get a pedicure, you get a manicure, whatever, then they give you a bit of a massage, whatever your hands, feet, whatever it is you got going on. If you want a longer massage or you want them to massage your head and neck and all of that, that's a whole nother story. Now, my question to you is you're asking this in conjunction with having gone to Pride, or is that a separate question forthcoming? Because let's be honest, if you're getting some kind of extra but benefit from it, shall we say, than just what your barber would normally be expecting to give, unless your barber is down with that program, don't do that. That's not nice. Okay. Even in massage parlors, there are certain massage therapists that expect regular massage, and then there are some massage establishments that encourage things like rub and tugs and things. So just it depends on what you expect from the massage and what you're getting out of the massage. Okay. That was a separate question. Okay. And again, a lot depends on how much further you expecting a barber to go, because for example, a barber, depending on where you at, I don't know what state you're in, but truthfully, a barber legally cannot touch your back. They can't go any lower than like here, perhaps neck, shoulders, head. They're not supposed to massage anything else. Hey, Brian Osiki, how are you? Okay, well, Michael, I'm sorry, I don't know because I get all kinds of questions in here, so I just wanted to make clear that I used to hold a cosmetology license, so I know that folks that do like esthetician work, hair, skincare, and all that, they're very limited. Their license is not the same as a massage therapy license. Hey, Seaside CC, welcome, welcome. And Miss Yates, welcome to you too. Welcome in. Now, as far as the pride thing, I'm not sure. You said you wanted my opinion on something, and then you said you went to Pride. What do you want? Do you want my general opinion on Pride, or because I've been to Pride? Well, I went to Pride in a small town. I was in there. it was a connection with my job, but I went in Sarasota a few years ago. In all honesty, the only, hey, Holly Beckman, how are you? The only issue that I have with the Pride festivals is since the Alphabet Committee then took over. And I say that with my full chest because all of the gay people that I know have an issue with the Alphabet Committee too. They done came in and want to take over everything. If somebody is just LG, like I said, L or G or even B, even the old school teas, I don't have no problem with. But they done went so far left that some of the things that go down at some of the Pride festivals now have just gone way off in left field towards targeting children, and it's just a lot. So that would be the only issue. Depend if it's a very fairly large city and a very large pride festival. As a spiritually focused being, personally, I would probably kind of steer clear of it. Not because I'm anti LGB or T, but just because I realize that that community has been infiltrated and taken over by a very dangerous agenda that is pushing some very unhealthy things and mental illness. Hey, Joe 76 Rome Ortiz, welcome in, welcome in. You say you're from Uganda. You really like me, and this how you do your best to have a friend over there as you now. Well, first of all, Brian, I hate to tell you, but I wanted to be. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not being egotistical, but I am weird, and I know that. I've over the years I've been in the online space for free um, since like 1998, 99ish, and back in the Yahoo days. And I've made like really cool people. Some I've got friends that I've had chat friends. We don't talk all the time, but we've been chat friends for the better part of 20 years. But I know for a fact that the way I look at online communications is different than a lot of folks. Like the last live stream I had, somebody came in and basically said, "Well, I'm online. I got a right to." They look at being online as an excuse to be offensive and insulting and all of the cowardly things that they would never do in person. They see that the online community as a place to basically get their rude and disgusting jollies off. And I've never been that way. I respect the fact that everyone that I communicate with, if somebody hits me up in Messenger, whether I know them or not, um, there's a human being behind that screen. So if they come at me respectfully, I'm gonna come at them respectfully, even if I'm not interested in nothing else. Because a lot of folks use like Facebook and various places try to use it as a dating site, and I'll be quick to let them know that ain't what I'm here for. But I done been auntie, answer questions, best friend, international, whatever. As long as they not going hi my name is and sending me inappropriate pictures and I'm cool. Oh, thank you, Michael. Hey, you might as well be chill. I am very much a loner these days. I like people, I love people, but I just my up close and personal interactions with folks, a lot of the folks in my former tribe have kind of distanced themselves. So I just I'm used to being by myself, but I love coming on here live to kind of hang out with you guys too because you're my association. And again, I respect the fact that you all are actual individual people. I don't see this like playing a video game. Too many people look at online communications like, oh, it don't matter what I say, it don't matter what I do, it don't matter whose feelings I hurt. No. Same as I wouldn't walk up in public and just go to insulting people. Yeah, that ain't me. Hey, Stardust, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to miss you. Welcome in, welcome in. I'm random too, Michael. I just was kind of wondering, so I'm glad I took them separately. See, we're talking about people being rude online just because, and here come Niall right on time with his little insult about my gap in my teeth. I wear that with pride, my love. In case you didn't know, that is something very common to melanated peoples, particularly Africans and indigenous Americans. And I have both of those lineages as part of my heritage. Yes, I got the Scottish thing going on, but I also am Choctaw, Blackfoot, Seminole, and I have an African lineage as well. So, in many, many, many parts of the world, other than the narrow minded, dumbass United States, In many parts of the world, that gap in the teeth is called an open smile and is considered very beautiful. Okay? Just so you know. Oh, you say you haven't found a beautiful woman like me? I look like your life? No, my fiance don't think I look like your life. He think I look like his life. And since he kind of cute and he smell good, I'm gonna keep him. So I'm so sorry. But you keep listen. I tell anybody, female and men, if you want something, and again, hold on a second. Let me make sure I'm not missing something. Hold on. I don't need no option to change, Niall. And actually, I did have an option to change. In my early 20s, I've had dentists ask and offered when I was having dental work done. They wanted to close my gap for me, and I refused. All of the women in my family have that gap, and I'm perfectly content with it. And it ain't never, ever, ever, ever stopped me from getting a man. I promise you. Like I said, I got 4 children, and I done had more men than I even care to even want to admit or think about. So I'm good. You said it's honorable for a woman from Haiti to support Pride several years ago. It was her Buddhist faith to stay until she saw other Buddhist members enjoyed her conversation about it. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with, like I said, that whole idea of being hateful to people in the front half of the alphabet community. It's narrow minded thinking and very bigoted type thinking. Now, the back half of the alphabet community, they generate hate towards themselves just because of how ridiculous they are. They done came in and want to just be up in your face and always complaining and always counting themselves the victim and just, and don't nobody really want that. So people don't have a lot of patience for that. What do I think about the demolition of the east wing of the People's House? I don't think nothing about it. Every president that's ever been in the White House and made whatever changes that they felt they needed to make, they within reason, they're allowed to make changes to as to adapt that house to suit their needs while they're gonna be there. I don't have no problem with that. Look at all the millions and the billions of dollars he done cleaned up out the economy. So if he want to do a $250,000, whatever it is, renovation to part of the White House, go knock yourself out. You know, he giving somebody in DC a job. That's what I think about it. People that look for an excuse to hate Trump scream about things that Trump has done, but I guarantee you, Trump ain't did nothing that every single president we've ever had has done. Everything. I have no idea what happened to Travis Scott. Every president, all the way back from Washington's time or not, that had a consort or some kind of something. It should be, that should honestly, at this point, it should be an official office like Secretary of State or whatever. Look what Maryland did when she was alive. Every president done had extramarital affairs and people on the books that shouldn't have been, and scandalous stuff they did behind the scenes that didn't nobody want to talk about. It only became an issue when America got so damn nosy in the last 30 years that they feel like they got to know everything. So media and paparazzi shoved cameras in places where cameras respectfully got no business going. And then we wind up with a lot. Case in point, when they hit the whole Bill and Monica thing, y'all may not remember, but I'm old enough to remember. Hey, Mert, yeah, we do kind of sort of need to go. We need to go further back than the '90s as far as the type of stuff we're talking about right now. But you got to go back far as you can remember. But like when uh, Bill Clinton and the Monica Lewinsky thing went down, most people kind of sort of missed the fact that France was having the same kind of scandalous issue with their president at the time. But you know why? Because France know how to shut their damn mouth and not put all their dirty laundry out there. If his wife chose to bust him in the head with a Le Creuset and go on about her business, that was fine. And he did, showed up, looked like he had a little bit of a black eye, the president of France at the time, and they handled it behind the scenes. It didn't need to be all discussed and all of the the manuscripts and all of the everything. And people say, oh, but that's a public service, so their life is an open book. That's a lie. Their life should only be an open book so as it pertains to them doing their job. That would literally be like you going to work, and because you work on a job, your boss say they got a right to go home and watch you take a shower. It's not the same. If Americans need to stop being so damn nosy and disrespectful. Hey, Niana, how are you? And I know that was way more of a soapbox than people probably thought they were going to get out of me, but I feel strongly about stuff like that because our quote unquote need to know that we've been programmed to get because of the media and stuff has literally led to a desensitization of information as well as disregard or disrespect for the office of the presidency. There are certain things that are said about and to our president that 100 years ago somebody would have been literally taken out and shot, no trial needed over. And people need to learn to have some more respect for the office of the presidency. You don't have to like the man, but respect the position. Especially since he's doing it on his own time and his own dime. He ain't even taking the taxpayers' money for this. He just wants to help and straighten it out. Hey, X-Class Monitor, how are you? You've been listening to Nina Simone? Yeah. She was very kind of troubled too, though. But her music was good, and I do listen to it sometime. I just try not to get too. Lately, I'm careful about how far down dark alleyways I let myself go into music. Music is very moody and it drives certain things. And a lot of the artists of, wait, I mean, I love Billie Holiday, but I have to be in a mood for Billie and get up off of her because when you look at some of these artists that have very, very tragic lives, and the energy of that pain and angst is in their music. And when you're trying to really maintain your energy level at a certain place, you have to be careful what you listen to. You have to be careful what you put in your ears, careful what you put in your eyes, careful what you put in your mouth. My name is Teresa. My spiritual name is Ananya Ngozi, which means unique blessings. That is a Sanskrit and Igbo collab name. Music can influence, it can, yeah, well, with an H, but yeah. Music can absolutely influence your life. Because it influences your thought patterns, it influences your emotions, your feelings, and ultimately your overall vibration. Yeah. Think about, and again, I'm not slamming any genre of music, but me personally, I can't listen to like grunge metal, like that death metal type music. I can listen to hard rock, some of it fairly hard, but when we start roaming off into like acid and death metal, it that irritates my ADHD. The way that I can't do it. The way mine is set up, like I can't even do ASMR. Some people love ASMR. It irritates the fire out of me. No, I there's an H in my name, but why? But I did say Teresa, but you're not spelling it correctly. But my name is Teresa. So what's up, y'all? What we doing? What we doing? Yeah, that's right, X class monitor. Well, honestly, Michael Stevens, and I get that part. A lot of folks get so ultra religious, all they'll listen to is gospel, but that's also why they may stay mentally stuck. Now, it's your grandma, so um, they do that, but listening to only gospel music is very limiting too because you're feeding your mind that poison constantly. I don't know why you feel like you need to monitor whatever X class monitor, but we're not going no further down that rabbit hole than that. My first name is all you need, so that's good. You ended up going off on her? Oh wow. And again, listen, y'all, for those of us that have parents and grandparents and aunties and uncles that just don't seem to be waking up and they think we're weird and they fuss about everything we got to say and all of that, let it go, because some of them are just not going to wake up in this time. The timelines are splitting. I'm old enough. If I stick around long enough, I might say, but yes, I'm quite, yeah. I mean, you can look at me and tell I'm not a spring chicken. Put it to you like this: my oldest child is 34, my youngest is 25. Hey, Cruel Intentions, welcome in, welcome in. Hey, John Doe, what's that mean on my forehead? It's a sticker. It's called a bendy, and it doesn't really mean anything. It's a covering for my third eye, but I'm not Hindu, so it doesn't really have any religious meaning for me. Heck yeah, I told you my youngest child is 25 years old, so yes, you are young. I'm older than you are old, let's put it that way. Bye, Karen G. And everything you want to send to me, you should know by now. I'm protected by Yeshua and Archangel Michael. So, Archangel Michael and Lord Yeshua, I ask that everything that is sent my way be summoned and wrapped and sent right back to Karen G. In Yeshua's name, I thank you. Wow. Mm-hmm. It's going to come back to you threefold. You already know that. Goodbye, Karen G. Terrible. Why would somebody come in flinging demonic curses, literally sending demonic curses to a person that they don't even know? I ain't said not one word about reading anything in this live stream, and they just walk on up in here and start flinging literal demonic curses. She was calling on Belial and Ashtaroth. Richard Woods, we definitely not gonna come in here and glorify no drug use. You got one more thing to say about some drugs, and you'll be putting time out as well. Not finna do that. I, s- Richard, you're on your way out. Goodbye. Yeah, bye. X class monitor. Have a good day. If you don't, if you're welcome to stay, because we're not discussing anything untoward, and I'm not reading tarot up in here. We discuss the scriptures. I've been in the Lost Book of Enki. I did a bit of a reading from that last live stream, and I was gonna ask some folks if they want to get back into it tonight. But yeah, we not. I don't tolerate discussion of drug use. I don't tolerate racist stuff up in here. People can talk about me all they want. I'm not easily offended about my personal appearance. But we don't do racist stuff. We don't do seriously hateful national, none of that bigoted type nonsense. Because, see, you can't be spiritually enlightened and walk around talking that kind of foolishness, that part. So I'll talk to just about anybody. I've had 10 and 12-year-olds come in here with their parents' permission and enjoy our conversations. So you don't have to leave because you're 22. I mean, if you don't like what we're talking about, you're free to leave. But yeah. Well, you say that's right. Yeah. I don't know how these people think that they're awakened and flinging things about racism. That don't you know we all came from the same place? We literally all came from the same place. Every single one of us, technically, are Africans. Every single one of us. Don't matter what your skin color is. All Homo sapiens sapiens life as we know it came off the African continent and then spread out other places. So there's no need for anybody to be walking around thinking that they're better than or whatever than anybody else based on skin tone of this little 3 millimeter covering of our avatar. All of us came from a lab, Bobby Brown, but again, it was a lab in Africa, according to this book. And this book goes along with it. This book basically confirms this book, but gives you more details. Every single one of us came out of a lab in Africa. That blow from the dust of the ground and all of that, that's a lie. we came out of a petri dish from the Anunnaki, who modified a hominid that they found when they came here to Africa to mine gold to save the their environment on their home planet. Now, some of these people act like they're more related to the hominids than they are to the Anunnaki. And there's a difference because there are some soulless beings on this planet, sad to say. Some people have souls and some don't, because over time in the breeding program, there were several different strains of Homo sapiens. The Adam and Eve, their bloodline began to devolve, and Enki shored up and started a secondary bloodline that they refer to as civilized man. That was Adapa and Titi. And truthfully, the Adam and Eve that's referred to in the Bible is Adapa and Titi, not Adam and Eve. Thank you, Nolan Ziegler. I appreciate you. And truthfully, the afterlife cruel intentions, if you start reading the Emerald Tablets and understand it ain't even about, ultimately, yeah, we kind of sort of do the same afterlife scenario, but we're being looped in a vicious 3D cycle right now. And once we actually do the work to ascend, you remember when Yeshua said, greater things than I have done will you do? The kingdom of heaven is within you. Did I not tell ye are gods? Yeshua ascended from man to Christos on earth before they unalived him. What do you think he was doing for the 18 years he was gone from Jerusalem? He went up into Egypt, studied under the Coptics, went into the Himalayas, studied under the Tibetan monks, went into India, studied under Babaji, came up through the pyramids of ascension. It was like 7 initiation schools, mystery schools that he went through. It took 18 years of intensive spiritual study. And then when he came back into Jerusalem, he was baptized. And then he went into the wilderness for a 40-day fast and was tempted by the devil, Satan, Yahweh. And when he came out of that 40-day fast, he became Christos and then began teaching and performing miracles and all those things. But he said, greater things than I have done will you do. But humans have allowed the church to lord it over them and tell them they're unworthy and disgusting and pitiful, and we need this and we need salvation, and Yeshua had to die for our sins, so we so dirty. That's one of the biggest lies anybody ever told. Yeshua did not have to die for our sins because we're so dirty. Yeshua died because he came here and dared to try to tell the Jews the truth, that they were worshiping the devil and they were not worshiping the same Elohim that sent him. And they hated him so much for it that the Jews didn't want to unalive him themselves, so they put the Romans up to doing it. And then 300 years later, the Romans turned around and gave us that so-called crucifixion propitiatory sacrifice lie in order to rinse his blood off their hands. They had to justify what they did because they were bringing him back into their religion story. No pride in yeah, the real Israelites are from Ethiopia, but here's the thing, that still ain't nothing to brag about, because I've said it on my channel, and again, I say things after doing the research. I say it with my whole chest. The Israelites in Ethiopia, they dead wrong too, because they clinging to a demonic god because their ancestor, who wasn't too bright, chose to worship a demon. Abraham chose to worship Yahweh. And then later on, Moses turned around and chose to worship Yahweh. But Abraham was a liar and Moses was a murderer. And Yahweh didn't do right by either of them, but he was sitting up there putting them up to that stuff, and they carried on. So to a couple of times, Yahweh said, "You a stiff-necked people, and I wash my hands of you." You said, is it true that Yeshua created white people? No. Bobby Brown, no, absolutely not. White people, that whole idea of people, the Caucasian races, again, you gotta let's dial it back a little bit. First of all, in order to understand how white people came into being, you have to understand that the creation story is way, 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 way older than what the Bible tells you. Religion had people up until about 30 or 40 years ago. Religion tried to tell a lie that humanity was only 6,000 years old. This book right here, and somebody had asked what this book is. This is the Lost Book of Enki, and I hesitate to say it's by Zechariah Sitchin. It is not by Zechariah Sitchin. The translation was translated by Zechariah Sitchin. Okay, but there was a part during the after humanity was created per se. There's in the Bible it tells us about the Tower of Babel and the scattering of the languages and that sort of thing. Well, they were all kind of centrally located. There were several civilizations or cities in Africa when the Anunnaki first came here. There was Shumer and Ur and Nippur and Shurabak, Eridu. Those are like the main cities that were in that area. But as humanity began to proliferate, they did get to a point under, I think it was under Nebuchadnezzar, that they decided to build a tower to the heavens. Look, it talks about in the Lost Book how they had to bond heaven, earth. There were communication towers that the Anunnaki had built. Look at the pyramids and stuff. They had power plants and communication towers and space stations and landing space stations and all the rest of that stuff. Well, humans were building a tower to the heavens as well. And when Enlil, Yahweh, Jehovah, found out about it, he got so angry that he literally scattered their languages. He demanded that our lifespans be shortened, our telomeres were capped so that we would not live past about 120 years, and he scattered the languages. When people's languages were scattered, they were scattered out into other parts of the earth. And when they went, they took their various Elohim or leaders with them. They weren't just humans scattering like roaches. Each of them took their various Anunnaki rulers, if you will, with them, and languages developed over time. But anthropologists have shown that the primary reason, whether you want to go with the theory of them being sequestered in the Caucasus Mountains or with the European situation with the farming and agriculture, over time when they were off the African continent and changing their diet, when wheat and grains started being domesticated, the change in diet caused a drop in melanin. White people basically are a conglomeration of um, what do you call it? Recessive traits that have become dominant traits because they were bred and bred and bred and bred so long that those traits became recessive, and then they began to express in abundance. Because if you think about it, black people can have straight hair, blue eyes, thin lips, and light skin as well. You just don't see it as much in Caucasian people because they sequestered themselves for so long off of the African continent that those recessives began to come to the fore. That's all. Hey, keep your head up. Welcome, welcome. But that's why I say we still all basically came from Africa. And you also have to remember that the term Anunnaki is a blanket term. It simply means those who from earth to heaven came, or those who from heaven to earth came, is what the term Anunnaki meant. Nibiru was a very diverse planet, just like the US, got people from all over the world in it. Nibiru started out as two basic factions of people, and over time they allowed in immigrants, if you will, from all over the cosmos because there was a galactic war going on and people were being displaced from their home planets because their planets were being blown up. That's how the folks on Nibiru got to be the folks on Nibiru. Two factions of people had their home world blown up and they found an uninhabited planet and they settled there. And they had been on Nibiru probably for 400,000 or 500,000 years before they started having issues with the atmosphere and found a need to, because they knew Earth was here, but they wasn't pressed to get to Earth because, you know, but they knew the legend of gold being on Earth because it was gold. There's, according to them, the gold that we have on Earth is shrapnel from the explosion of Tiamat. Gold is not indigenous to this planet. Exactly. Keep your head up. You're not going to hear this in church. I was in religion for a very, very long time. I was taught to read from the Bible extensively. And then when I started really, I made up my mind to really sit down and meditate intensively about 9 years ago. And after a few years, I realized I was being invited on the path of the initiate, and I allowed my intuition to take me where it would take me. And the books and videos and audio books and meditations and all of those different things, it's been a process. But once the dots started connecting, I knew I had no choice but to tell folks what I knew, because I look how long it took me to figure it out. So once I figured it out, I still sat on it for about a year to make sure that my dots were connecting appropriately and check and double check some things. And can I say this? And should I say that? And finally, Spirit was like, no, whether they like it or not, whether they think you silly or not, you gonna tell what you know, because my perspective is a little different than some people's. And I get that part, but it's because of my background. I was taught to read from the Bible by the age of 3. So when I say I read the Bible thoroughly, I've read the Bible very thoroughly. However, about 2 years ago, I kept clairaudiently hearing they delivered him up to the Jews, to the Romans. They delivered him up to the Romans. They delivered him up to the Romans. And I really had to sit with that for a little while. And it brought, because I had stopped reading the Bible for a while. When I found out that religion was lying, I was just angry with religion and had walked away from it for a while and all the rest of that. No, Bobby, the Anunnaki are not demons, not all of them. Again, your conception of what you think demons are is not what they are. Your conception of what you think angels and gods are not what they are. So some Anunnaki are demons and some Anunnaki are angels. Some Anunnaki are what we consider to be all benevolent sky daddy, but in truth, he is evil. And his brother is also an Anunnaki that we don't give no credit to, but he is the one that's been behind the scenes trying to help us every step of the way. And we ignore him and we go on and do whatever we're going to do. The only reason we're still here on this planet at all today is not because of Yahweh Jehovah. It's not. That's the lie that's told in the Bible, because they genericized everything in this book. People don't realize this book is not, they say all scripture is inspired of God and beneficial for, oh, shamanic, don't come in here with that nonsense. It is possible to read the whole Bible. You just because you can't read don't mean other people can't. Because even on this channel, we done went through the Gospel of John. I done been through 1st and 2nd Kings. I done been through Amos and Obadiah. We done been all up in Revelation, a fair part of Genesis, and we're still continuing to examine the scriptures and went into the Gospel of Judas. Right now, I'm in the book of Enoch. We're going to go into the Gospel of Adam and Eve. It is possible to read it all. Yeah, shamanic, again, that's a troll. This is his 6th time now, at least, up in this stream. And he's so silly, he ain't learned nothing yet. So it'll be all right. But the issue ain't even whether you can read it entirely. It's whether do you understand what you're reading. And I know for a long time, I read stuff. And because I was under the hypnotism of religion, I wasn't quite understanding what I was reading. Because if Christians actually understood what they read, they would have stopped serving Jehovah a long time ago. A long time ago. They say no man can see God and yet live, but in Genesis chapter 18, it tells us that somebody. Let's do a little Bible study today, shall we? We're gonna try to make it quick here. Let me see. In let me see. Genesis, I think it's chapter 18, is where Yahweh showed his face to Abram. You say, let's go. Hey, sure enough, let's go. All right. Yep. Genesis chapter 18, starting in verse 1. And the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves and that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, do as you have said. Hold on. Oh, got another let's go. All right. You say you turned from Christianity when you got to the New Testament. You couldn't trust a faith that was teaching it so incorrectly and refused to live it. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. We're going to come back to this, but I'm going to address what Natalie Rose was saying. That was the second thing. After I got through with looking at they delivered him up to the Romans and the full impact of what that meant, it occurred to me that the reason Christianity doesn't really work the way people think it's supposed to work is because they used Yeshua as a mascot, as a buttoning up piece. They used him as a bridge to segue people from Judaism into Christianity, but they completely misinterpreted his message. They tried to claim Yeshua was promoting Yahweh worship, and it could not be further from the truth. He told them in John chapter 8, you worshiping your father, the devil. You don't know my father. My father that sent me ain't got nothing to do with what y'all doing. You worshiping your father, the devil. He told them straight up that Yahweh Jehovah is the devil. And he ain't lying. He knew ancient history because he was Anunnaki too. And according to the Anunnaki texts, Yahweh, Jehovah, when he first came here, his name was Enlil from Nibiru, but his titles, he had 2. One of his titles was Lord of the Command. His other title was Satan of the Eden. People do not understand that this Bible is telling you the absolute truth when it tells you the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. They ain't never lied, because Yahweh has taken over the whole world. And Yeshua told people that was going to happen. He said after they killed him that there would come along a great deceiver who would lead humanity lost for thousands of years. And right on cue, about 100 years after Yeshua's death, along came Paul with that instantaneous conversion lie he told about how he met up with the Spirit of the Lord on the road to Damascus. Paul hated the Jews and everything they stood for, and he sure enough hated the Edomites and the Essenes and what they stood for. He wasn't trying to convert nobody to respecting Yeshua. All of the New Testament basically is telling them how they got it wrong. All the folk, the little ragtag congregations that was left that were followers of Yeshua, Paul basically is coming in and letting everybody know, F what you heard, there's a new sheriff in town, and this is the way we're moving forward. Paul single-handedly finished tearing down the remnants of those who believed in Yeshua and redirected Christianity. You say according to? Because these are not gospel. We're sold the Bible like these are all eyewitness events that were written in real time by the people who actually had this going on, and that's not the case. Most of these books that are in the Bible are copies of copies of copies that were taken from ancient stories and collaborations of and hearsay of, written down by the mystics and in the here and it's very highly unlikely that Matthew, Mark, and Luke, that those gospels were written by any of those men. In fact, we talked about that on the channel. We know good and full well they weren't, because the way that they mirror the account of the Last Supper with that whole idea of the eating of my flesh and drinking of my blood. They recount that account exactly, almost word for word. Out of all the stuff Yeshua did, according to them, Matthew, Mark, and Luke recounted the same exact story, the same exact way, 60 to 110 years after his death. I think Matthew was written around 60 AD. The other one was written around 70 or 80 AD. Luke was written around 110 AD. So you got all of these books. First off, if you walked with Yeshua and witnessed all these things, why would you wait till 100 years after he was gone off the earth before you wrote down anything about it? And then the likelihood that you would decide to write something about it 100 years after he's already gone, and your stories are all going to match up word for word, written by different people in different parts of the world over a 60-year span or 50-year span, and you're telling me they're going to all match up perfectly? That's not going to happen, people. It's not possible. And then the one person that may have actually walked with Yeshua, John, his account of all of that happened don't say nothing about the eating of my flesh and the drinking of my blood at the Last Supper. It just says they went in to have the Passover meal, and after the Passover meal, he started washing their feet, and the devil came into Judas and caused him to go and betray Yeshua. Exactly, when they say they knew him, they meant they knew of him. Exactly. They didn't walk with Yeshua. They didn't. But anyway, let's get back here to Genesis 18. It says that the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre. Now, Yahweh was the one that said none of us could ever see their faces. If we saw their faces, we were to be unalived. But this particular day, he showed his face to Abraham and sat down under the tree and visited with Abraham long enough for Abraham to have Sarah bake bread for him, for Abraham to wash their feet, and for Abraham's farmhand to slaughter. I think it was hold on, let me see. Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, "Quick, take 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes." And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. So this is not an invisible, all benevolent sky daddy. This is a being with flesh, blood, a heart, a stomach, a mouth. And we've seen several times in the Bible, he loved him some barbecue. I'm trying to think. We were in Leviticus the other week, and oh my goodness. Now, this right here, it's a bloody account. I'm telling y'all now, but we're going to read it again because people need to understand what they're looking at. Hold on. This was in, I think it was Leviticus. Hold on. Let's see if I can find it. Might have been Leviticus 5. Hold on. Actually, it might not be Leviticus. Hold on. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Here we go. What about the dragon in the tabernacle? What about it? Yaldabaoth is a dragon. That's Yahweh. You didn't know? He's very often represent. Or the Gnostics recognized him as a dragon. Again, when we were talking about the Anunnaki, some of them had humanoid forms, but they were from all over the cosmos. Tiamat is described as a dragon. So if he was related in the bloodline of Tiamat at all, he may have had some dragon blood in him. You got to expand your mind past the Bible story. The Lyrans are like a feline type people, leonine, lion type faces. The Pleiadians look more human. The Arcturians look something else. They got some folks that look more arachnoid. The Nomo people, the Dogon people of Mali, describe the Nomo as an aquatic fish people from Sirius B. All of those people will be considered Anunnaki. So the idea of Yaldabaoth being appearing as a dragon, if you can flex your mind, that's not that hard of a stance. Hey, Ro. Bye. You don't come on with no foolishness. Do not even come over there. How, you know what? Obviously, you are making yourself very, very clear. Y'all ain't got to get rid of him because I want his ignorance to shine bright like a diamond. Because this is obviously somebody that can't get a woman nowhere. Because real men that get real women don't run around making random sexual comments inappropriate like that. That ain't cute or funny, Ro. So you telling on yourself. And we're in here literally with our Bible in hands having a discussion, and you sitting over here talking foolishness. How inappropriate can you be? That's somebody ain't got no damn life whatsoever. And very, very low intelligence too. Very low. All right, Bobby Brown. Now we're talking about the nature of Yahweh, and that's whoever this RO person probably considers himself a servant of Yahweh, probably a good Christian, Muslim, or Jew, one of them. Yeah, not remotely interested. Women don't want men like that, and real men don't behave like that. And again, I'm old enough to know. I got a few baby daddies and boyfriends under my belt, and none of them would approve of that kind of nonsense. And I know good and full well, if a woman showed up talking that kind of trash, then I would definitely have her committed because she done bumped her damn head somewhere. We supposed to know better. And I've never heard a woman, even a gay woman, a butch female, don't show up nowhere talking like that. That's something that loser dudes who live in their mama basement talk like that, not real people. Faith is all we need. Cool, I'm here. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Basil. So now, we've already seen Yahweh done went back on his word one time with Abraham. He said that we were not supposed to be able to see their faces and live, but yet he showed himself to to Abraham, and Abraham didn't die. He sat under the tree and let Abraham wash him and his angels' feet and ate the barbecue, ate the bread, drank the milk, all of that good stuff. Now here we go. And again, Yahweh is violent and he love his barbecue. If you got a weak stomach, you might want to turn away and come back in a few minutes because we're getting ready to read from the Bible. But this is, again, we read the Bible all the time, but sometimes we miss some stuff because we so busy in that brainwashed state that we ain't even realize what we're reading. Bye. Yeah, go on about your business, Ro. We don't care. You can stay and learn something, or you can carry your foolishness somewhere else. It's up to you. Okay, on the 8th day, wait a minute, hold on. On the 8th day, this is Leviticus chapter 9. We're going to read 9 and go into 10. Starting at verse 1. On the 8th day, Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel, and he said to Aaron, "Take for yourself a bull calf for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering, both without blemish, and offer them before the Lord. And say to the people of Israel, take a male goat for a sin offering and a calf and a lamb, both a year old without blemish, for a burnt offering, and an ox and a ram for peace offerings to sacrifice before the Lord, and a grain offering mixed with oil. For today the Lord will appear to you." Hold on, I want to count this again. I thought it was, see, a bull calf, a ram, a male goat, a calf, and a lamb, and an ox and a ram. 7 animals. If God created everything, why in the world do people need to sacrifice all of these animals to please him? You know what I mean? Why? Why would you have your creations just destroyed like that? Hey, Emilio Oyedele, how are you? Welcome, welcome. We're gonna get there. Let me see. Revelation 3:9. I'm gonna mark it right now because we can get there because one Revelation, I think is 3:12 is one of my favorite verses because it leads into a very important point in Revelation 20 and 21. So we will definitely get to Revelation. You obviously ain't been on my channel very often, or you would know that I'm not afraid to discuss Revelations. Yeah, I discussed 9 too because it's highlighted. I'm getting ready to put the highlighter right here in the book, right? I mean, marking the page. We'll get back to it, but you're not going to, since you say you out like chicken grease or whatever, peace, love, and chicken grease. Uh, I'm not going to allow you to sidetrack the conversation. We'll get there when we get there. Okay. But back where we were. So now Yahweh is commanding these people. You said, don't ask why they're food. No, but that's not the point. He's saying, I'm saying to y'all, because people want to believe that Jehovah, Yahweh, is an invisible being, this all benevolent sky daddy, this so grandiose and the da 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 da. He's not. He's got blood running through his veins, is my point. Because if he really, really was um and all benevolent, if he was truly the creator of heaven and earth, why would you need to unalive seven? Because these were not supposed to be eaten by the people, these were not food. These were supposed to be slaughtered and sacrificed to Yahweh. In one event, he demanded that seven animals be destroyed. Okay. Well, maybe you should pay attention before you just come in troll. And that's what I'm saying. It's very irresponsible. You just make yourself look silly when you jump into somebody's live stream just being rude and mean just because you think it's cute and you don't even know what they're talking about. But you're welcome to stay. No, no harm, no foul. Um, hey, Paul Snowcloud, welcome in. And truthfully, sacrifice, you said sacrifice without reason is not holy. Sacrifice ain't holy, period. We've been bamboozled and lied to believe that we need to make these sacrificial offerings to these ancestors and deities and stuff. That's a Yahweh thing. We ain't supposed to be sacrificing like that because that's worship. What even the idea when it comes down to the propitiatory sacrifice of our Lord Jesus, if God know everything, he the Alpha and the Omega, he know the beginning and the end. He's supposed to know that your hairs on your head before you was even born. Antonio, you gonna get up off of here with that. I don't care if he was, but truthfully, if you actually read your history, you would know and understand that Yeshua was very most likely married to Mary Magdalene. He was not gay, so stop the nonsense, okay? We don't do that here. And I am very much an oracle priestess for Yeshua and Lord Enki. That kind of disrespect of Enki of Yeshua will not be tolerated, sir. Thank you. Um, but yeah, if the all benevolent sky daddy that know everything and know all the hairs on your head before you was born, and he know this and he formed all of that blowharding that he do in the scriptures that he claimed he did all of this stuff, if he really did all of that, if he made a faulty product, what sense does it make to make man, Adam and Eve, and they done messed up right out the gate? They done messed up. But you let this mess continue to rock on for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And then all of a sudden you come along 2,500 years ago and force your son to be tortured and murdered as a blood sacrifice to pay back the fault of your faulty creation. What the F? Why do people think that makes sense? Why do people think that that's a loving God to do that? Oh, but again, I forgot. That's also the same God that told Abraham to go cut his son's throat to prove his worthiness and lovingness. He promised Abraham a son in his old age. He made that promise to Abraham when Abraham was 74 years old. and Sarah was 64. And he didn't fulfill that promise to Abraham until Abraham was 99 years old and Sarah was 89. And then as soon as Isaac get grown, Yahweh say, prove your faithfulness to me. Take him up on the mountaintop and sacrifice him to me to prove your faithfulness to me. What? You're saying that I'm your faithful servant. Every cockamamie thing you done asked me to do, including putting my life on the line, lying to the Pharaoh right out the first part, the first interaction they ever had. When he first started agreeing, he didn't even know Yahweh's name at that point. Yahweh saw him coming out the desert and wanted a people, because again, Yahweh done been exiled. He don't have a people. He don't have a land. He needs people to worship him. So he gets up, yo, Abraham, yo, if you follow me, I'm going to make your name a mighty people, and I'll give you a son in your old age. Abraham said, bet. Ain't got no kind of follow-up yet to prove whether this is true. You just going off and on the strength of what you said. Yes, absolutely, I'm questioning the Bible, Lori's world, because the Bible need to be questioned. If you understood where the Bible came from and who had put it together, you're supposed to question it. No, I wouldn't. There's nothing gay about that. And again, here we go with the people with the lesser IQs. Everything in your life don't have to be gay, Antonio. And even if it was, whoop-ty damn do. The only people that put any kind of judgment on homosexuality are people that are still brainwashed and sucked into the Yahwistic lie. That part. But you sound like a little boy, a 12-year-old kid in middle school. Oh, that's gay. Oh, that's gay. What whoop-de flipping do? A person that can't think past their crotch is very limited in intelligence. And again, you say that to say what? Because to this very day, most of the Abrahamic religions still cut the divine feminine out of the religions. The reason they was all on one pick, because men and women did not dine together for the most part. But if you notice, in the picture of the Last Supper, Mary is present. Idiot. But even today, you go into a mosque, the men worship separately. If you go into most temples, the men are sequestered off. It's only in Christianity they even allow men and women to mingle together in the congregation. But even at that, she's not supposed to be teaching, preaching, praying, or prophesying in the congregation according to the scriptures. So take that up with your God. Don't take it up with me. God don't work in mysterious ways. Again, that's a lie. Your brainwashed self been told, Lori's world. It ain't nothing mysterious about a man that comes down here and proclaims to be God and parades himself around as a God and literally goes to some of the lesser intelligent beings on the planet and trick them into serving him. And then because they're the ancestors, then a lot of other people continue following behind those traditions because that's what Abraham and what Moses chose to do. Because that's what happened. Like I said, Abraham was a liar and somewhat of a coward because he wouldn't even admit that his wife was his wife because he was afraid of the Pharaoh. And Moses was a murderer. But because they chose to serve Yahweh, even though he did the nation of, hello, Roman, hello, welcome, because he did the nation of Israel so dirty and they kept serving him and they did him dirty and he kept serving them. That's stupid. Why would you keep serving somebody that they never did right by you? And even Paul turned around in Hebrews 11:40. Hey, Gerline, welcome in, welcome in. What Paul said in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 39 and 40, that not one of the faithful men and women of old ever saw their promises fulfilled by Yahweh. Not one of them. Not one. So Yahweh is a liar. So therefore, uh, was that? Lori's World. When your God has been proven by his own so-called word to be a liar, I don't owe no sort of obeisance to that. That's not a mysterious way. That's somebody that's a liar. And a lot of the reasons people think that the Lord works in mysterious ways is because one of the things that they don't understand about this book is in this book where it says God, the word that's been translated to God doesn't mean God. It's a mistranslation. The word Elohim means powerful ones in the plural. It's not a singular sky daddy. And if you read the scriptures with that and read these other ancient texts, you'll begin to understand. You'll see the differences in personalities clearly. Like in here, it tells you the story of Ziazudra and the flood and all of that. And in the scriptures, it tells you Noah, Ziazudra is Noah. And in the Lost Book of Enki, it tells you very clearly that Noah worshiped or considered Enki his master. He was living in the land of Enlil, Yahweh, Jehovah, but they wasn't calling him Yahweh or Jehovah then. He was called Enlil, but Ziazudra, was on Team Enki because Ziazudra was actually Enki's biological son from a human. Tells you that in this book. They gloss over it in this book. They just give you the abbreviated Noah story in here. Go to the last live stream that I did. I'm wearing a red dress. Listen to that live stream. We read from the part of this book where it talks about the whole account of how and why the flood came about, what they did, all the rest of that. But one of the things that it made me remember is in the Bible, it says Noah walked with the true God. Now, people assume that's Yahweh because we've been told there's only one God that's talked about in this book, but that's not true. Even in First and Second Kings, I think they mentioned Baal in here. They mentioned Beelzebub in the Bible. They mentioned Kiyun, the sky god. They mentioned Asherah. So they acknowledged that there were other gods. Yahweh was the one that said, I'm jealous or whatever, and then start telling people there wasn't nobody out there but him. But it was plenty of other Elohim. Yeah. He say he jealous, but again, that's not a trait of a benevolent, perfect being. Jealousy is a very low energy emotion to have and express, and he's proud of being jealous. If he's all powerful, why would he need to be jealous? Anyway, let's get back to Leviticus because this, like I say, for those who haven't heard it before, it's going to knock your socks off because it gives you insight as to the nature of Yahweh. And that was my whole point, Lori. Again, I, according to you, Lori's World, and the rest of you who are kind of cringing at what I'm saying, you want to look at possibly, you consider me being disrespectful of God. No, I'm disrespectful of Yahweh, and there's a difference. I'm very respectful of Lord Enki. Just don't have no respect for Yahweh because he ain't earned none. In every pantheon he's ever shown up in on this planet, he was nasty and murderous and did not do right by humanity. He treated us very, very poorly. He treated the Israelites very poorly. So much so that 2 or 3 times in this book, in the Bible, the Israelites stopped worshiping him too. They went back to worshiping Asherah. He did them so dirty. Why do you think he had to come and rescue them out of Egypt? They were supposed to have been his name people back in the Abraham days before they even existed. But 500 or 600 years later, after they genuinely have become a mighty nation, well, it wasn't all that mighty. They were a nomadic nation. They done been captured out there because Yahweh wasn't providing for them or protecting them. They were taken into captivity in Egypt. And he still need a people. So now he gonna double back. I know. I didn't do right by y'all before. I didn't take care of you like I said I was going to before. But if you'll put your faith in me one more time, I'll lead you to the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey, and blah blah blah. Mm-mm. Hey, we are Charlie, and shout out to Mike. Shout out to you, Mike, and wish you a speedy recovery and a successful fight in your battle against the big C. You got it, big dog. You got it. This is not the creator, though, Lori. Again, either be quiet and learn something or go on off of this channel because you're not going to bring no Sunday school. In church, you only get this much of the story. This is literally you right now. You are in the position of trying like a kindergartner trying to explain astrophysics to somebody. You have no idea what you're talking about because you haven't done the research. You haven't read anything. If you try to figure this out based on the Sunday school rhetoric they give you, you're only covering this much of the story. You have been lied to, my love. You have been bamboozled. You have been hoodwinked. All of humanity has. When the scriptures say the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one, that is not a lie. The whole world is worshiping the devil, whether in the name of Christianity, Judaism, and or Islam. They are all worshiping Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah. The whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. And I'm here to speak the truth to help wake folks up. Now, if you don't want to be woke up, you can go on about your business. Okay? No, I don't have to respect a disrespectful religion, and I'm supposed to push what I'm supposed to. If a Christian can come up in my live stream and go to proselytizing and spewing lies, Lana, I'm entitled to teach what I know to be the truth, Lana. And if you don't like it, this all you got to do is scroll. So the people that are here to learn and want to hear what I'm talking about rather than continue to be hoodwinked and bamboozled and coaxed to sleep by the lies that religion has given us, Lana. We're supposed to wake up. You can't keep doing the same nonsense just because your mama and your grandmama didn't know no better and plunked your little booty down in the seat. So now you going to accept the brainwashing too? We done been blue pilled enough, baby. It's time for you to wake up and smell the coffee. There's a reason why the big wigs on this earth don't really play into religion like that. It's just poor folks that still cling to religion. No, you're ignorant, my love. And I mean that in the real sense of it. Ignorance means a lack of knowledge. And if you're sitting there still defending religion, you are very ignorant. You don't know what you're talking about. I've been reading the Bible, like I said, for almost 60 years. I know what I'm talking about. It's time for you to wake up, baby. Yeah, Jesus told them they was worshiping the wrong God. Go read John chapter 8, my dear. He told the Jews that the Elohim that sent him was not the same Elohim that they were worshiping, that they were worshiping their father, the devil. He called him a liar. The father of the lies said he had no truth in him. Yeshua said that to the Jews. And they hated him so much for it that they had the Romans unalive him. And then the Romans, in their ultimate act of hypocrisy, turned around 300 years later and twisted all of his teachings to use the story of them unaliving him to knit together the bridge between Judaism into that new form of Yahweh worship that they were rolling out on the planet called Christianity. But Yeshua did not worship Yahweh. Yeshua was an Edomite. Yes, he was a flesh and blood Jew, but religiously he was an Edomite and very possibly an Essene. And neither of those sectors of Judaism, neither of them worshiped Yahweh. Go do your homework before you tell me I'm ignorant, my love. I know what I'm talking about. And I know people like you don't like it, but I'm duty bound to speak because I am a servant of Yeshua. He said, in fact, his father said after his baptism, "This is my son, the beloved, whom I have approved. Listen to him." And in another verse, he said, "This is my son at the transfiguration. This is my son, the beloved, whom I have approved. Believe him or follow him." Yeshua said, "Pick up your cot and follow me." He wasn't leading nobody to loop back around back into Judaism, and certainly not into this transposed Yahwism that was coming on the planet. He told people that had faith in him to pick up their cot and follow him. He was not telling nobody to worship Yahweh. Yahweh is a monster. Hey, Mimo, how are you? You can't prove nothing, baby, because again, you don't even know what you believe in. Muhammad couldn't even read, so Muhammad didn't even know. Peace be upon him. But Muhammad didn't even know if whether they manipulated what he actually said or not into the religion you call Islam. And it's extremely ignorant and narrow-minded to think that the planet faith-based systems have been on this planet for over 300,000 years, and you really think that the religion that just came along 1,500 years ago is the all-being infallible truth? Really, that's super ignorant. Hey, keep your head up. No, Yeshua was not a magician. Yeshua was an enlightened being, an ascended master. He became Christos through his spiritual walk on this planet, and he encouraged us to do the same thing. That part. And Mimo, hell ain't even a real thing for humans. If you actually stop reading the Quran and go back and double check, I ain't gonna tell you to stop reading it. Double check some of them other ancient texts. The Quran is not the only ancient text. There's a whole lot of other texts out there that's way older than the Quran. And they'll tell you hell is not for humans. Even the Bible, Christians got that wrong. In Revelation, where it talks about the lake of fire, it don't say nothing about humans going to it. That's a place for Satan and his henchmen, the demons, the other Anunnaki who chose to follow him. Hell ain't for humans, honey. Stop the bullshit. Yep, teaching. Yep. Hey, Jilly, how are you? Exactly. They're quick to confine somebody to hell, Jilly, not understanding. Thank goodness there isn't no such thing as a burning hell, because their karma just for that, for wishing somebody to hell, would get them trapped in the same hell they wish for somebody else. Like that fool that came in here spewing demonic curses earlier in the live stream. Every bit of that goes right back to them. Hi, Raquel Hughes. Welcome to you. Oh, you welcome. You welcome. Let's get back to this because I want to get here, and I still want to go into Revelation before we get done. But this account, I want people that are here because they still trying to make Yahweh be all knowing and good. And for the Muslim brother or sister that was in here, please understand something. When I say you don't understand, because every time I talk to a Muslim, they swear up and down that Allah is not the same energy as Yahweh. But I'm trying to tell you, if you trace back through the different religions and pantheons and stuff, before Yahweh was called Yahweh, he was called a lot of different things: Baal, Beelzebub, Dionysus, Zeus, Odin. He'd have been called a lot of things. His first name was Enlil. However, even in the time of the Jews and the Muslims kind of came up around that same time period. Judaism came around in 500 BC. Christianity came around right at the turn from BC into in Anno Domini 325 AD was when Christianity as a full-fledged religion rocked out with that thing we see going now. And then Islam came along in 600 AD. But way before then, they were all in the same part of the world, kind of milling around each other. So their beliefs were kind of overlapping and tied in together. You said your language is bad to put you in a bad situation with me. I ain't in no bad situation with you, baby. I know what I'm talking about. You the one that don't know. Because again, Muslims refuse to understand that the being that they call Allah is the same energy. It comes from El, and El is the same energy that tied back to Baal and ultimately to Yahweh. Over time, Yahweh started absorbing other deities' names. But before he got so jealous that he crowded everybody else out, at one point, Asherah, Baal, and Yahweh was worshipped all together in the same temple. Lisa DeSalvo, I'm not sure who's bothering with you. I haven't seen you before. So if you don't like what's being said, leave. That's all you got to do, honey. Ain't nobody forced you up in here. Didn't nobody tie your hands. You on your phone scrolling on YouTube. And just like you scrolled here, you could keep on scrolling. But I'm not going to stop teaching because you don't like it. Obviously, you here for a reason. It's irritating you for because you don't understand, but you hear something that in the back of your mind, your inner being, something kind of sort of knows it's the truth because you're still here. So I'm not pushing, truthfully, I'm not pushing religion on nobody. I'm trying to wake people up so they can get the hell away from religion. That's what I'm trying to do. That part. I'm not pushing religion anywhere because Inky gave us that work. The only reason you want to worship anybody or anything is because Yahweh insisted that we have a worship gene placed in us to make us want to worship. And Inky felt so bad about doing that because Inky was the prime geneticist, but he was following orders from his daddy and his uncle. He did it when he was our progenitor, when he was designing us. We had a worship gene installed in us, but he also gave us the ability to turn it off. And if you actually have Anunnaki intelligence in you, you will turn it off. That's what Eve did. Hey, Sage E, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Well, glad to see you, my dear. Glad to see you. But anyway, back to this trying to understand the nature of Yahweh, because y'all are so quick to want to cling to, some of you, I get it, not everybody in here, but some of these folks are so quick to want to cling to the idea of worshiping Yahweh. You need to pay attention to what you actually worshiping. So we're going to read from the scriptures so you can understand the true nature of this being that you think is an invisible sky daddy. There's some real accounts in this Bible that tell you about how he's treated people and how he behaves that will let you know he ain't nothing nice that nobody with good sense should be wanting to still worship. The story of Job is just one of them, and we'll get there. And actually, I can talk about that one now because everybody's familiar with Job in the Bible. Job, they said, was blameless among men. He was the wealthiest man in the land. He had thousands of head of sheep. Oh, you welcome, my dear. Have a wonderful evening. He had thousands of head of sheep, thousands of head of goats, hundreds of acres of land and grain and storehouses, and 10 children. He was the wealthiest man in the land, and he served Yahweh. And just to prove a point, Yahweh said, you can do it. Oh, actually, the more I read the account of Job, I honestly think Job was actually following Lord Enki, to be honest, because Satan is the one, the Satan of the Eden is Enlil, Yahweh. That was their relationship. So if Job was serving Enki, and Job said, and Yahweh challenged him, well, of course he's serving him. You give him everything he wants. He got all this and that. Of course he serves him. And Yahweh said, do whatever you want to, just don't kill him. And Satan turned around and stripped everything from Job. Overnight killed 10 of his adult children. 10 children gone overnight. All of his flocks, all his sheep, all his goats, all his oxen gone overnight. It was like 10,000 head of each, I think. No, 5,000 head of oxen, 5,000 head of sheep, 5,000 head of goats. 15,000 animals and 10 of his adult children were slaughtered overnight just to prove a point for Yahweh. That's disgusting. I have nothing to know in another life is to you, not to your. Bye. You don't be sorry for my truth, baby. Carry your ass. That's all you got to do, Mimo. Carry your ass. Here, I'll help you. How about that? I'm going to help you get gone. Now, we're going to put you in a little timeout. You can still stay and listen if you want to, but we're going to put you in timeout. So, how about that? And again, they would rather sit here and argue me than go somewhere and check. Because again, I invite anybody and everybody that don't like what I'm saying, or even if you do like what I'm saying, I tell everybody almost every time I get on a live stream, don't take my word for it. Go do your homework. Go read the scriptures. Go look at the documentary. Go listen to the audio book. Go watch the podcast from somebody else even. Don't take my word for it. But anywho, back to the nature of Yahweh. They done, like I said, they were getting ready on the 8th day. Moses and Aaron called his sons and the elders to Israel. He done told them to take 7 animals and the grain offering to slaughter these animals to sacrifice to Yahweh. And they brought what Moses commanded in front of the tent of meeting, and all the congregation drew near and stood before the Lord. And Moses said, "This is the thing that the Lord commanded you to do, that the glory of the Lord may appear to you." So just to be able to see the glory of the Lord, they got to slaughter 7 animals. Really? But ain't the animals supposed to be God's creation too? So we're not slaughtering them for food. We're just slaughtering them to burn them up just to appease Yahweh at this point. Hey, Brooklyn Miss, welcome. Good evening. So now it says, "This is the thing that the Lord commanded you to do, that the glory of the Lord may appear to you." Then Moses said to Aaron, "Draw near to the altar and offer your sin and your burnt offering and make atonement for yourself and for the people, and bring the offering of the people and make atonement for them as the Lord has commanded." So Aaron drew near to the altar and killed the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. And the sons of Aaron presented the blood to him. And he dipped his finger in the blood and put it on the horns of the altar and poured out the blood at the base of the altar. But the fat and the kidneys and the long lobe of the liver from the sin offering he burned on the altar, as the Lord commanded Moses. The flesh and the skin he burned up with fire outside the camp. So now he done burnt the flesh and the skin. Thank goodness he took them outside the camp, because in a closed space, all of that burnt flesh, barbecue smell good but it burning the skin, the hair, the pelt, all of that stinks. And then they done bled this animal out at the base of the altar, and they're smearing the blood on the altar. I don't know if any of y'all are country enough to have been around an animal being slaughtered, but all of that hot blood, it's not pleasant, okay? But we got what, 4 more to go, 5 more to go. We got 7 to get through, and he didn't kill 2 of them so far. Exactly. Gross. And yeah, sacrificing animals does not atone for transgression. So why Yahweh would even tell them to do that? Because Yahweh liked barbecue. Why did they have to bring so many animals to the temple to sacrifice? Because Yahweh liked barbecue, quite honestly. Then he killed the burnt offering, and Aaron's sons handed him the blood, and he threw it against the sides of the altar, and they handed the burnt offering to him piece by piece, and the head he burned them on the altar, and he washed the entrails and the legs and burned them with the burnt offering on the altar. So right, really, like seriously, he done cut the head off and he burned it. He took the skin and the bulk of the body out of the camp, but now they literally, he's throwing blood around in here, and then took the head, he took the liver and the entrails and draped it on the altar and smearing the blood on it, and to put the head up there and then setting that on fire in this enclosed space. Disgusting, absolutely grotesque, you're right, but let's keep going. Then he presented the people's offering and took the goat of the sin offering that was for the people and killed it and offered it as a sin offering like the first one. And he presented the burnt offering and offered it according to the rule. And he presented the grain offering, took a handful of it and burned it on the altar besides the burnt offering of the morning. So now you got all of this blood, all of this grain, all of this flesh in this hot environment, and you just throwing blood everywhere. And this is supposed to be what's necessary and normal in to appease Yahweh. Hold on, y'all. I'm trying to find a little cloth thing. I can't never keep up with my little thing to clean my glasses with. Lord have mercy. There it go. Exactly. You said you don't think they're it because it tastes like crap. Tastes like it would not only, who want to even get to the tasting like it smelled like it. You done sat up here and burnt hot grain. You're not, again, we're not talking about roasting it in a pan. You're throwing it in fire. So it starts to, you smelling a whole bunch of burnt grain and the blood, hot, fresh blood of animals, and the head of these goats and the oxen and the whatever that's in there still got the hair, the entrails, all of that. And he said he washed out the entrails, but it was all still in that same place. So they done had to empty out the entrails and stuff and rinse them off. And now you throwing all of that into the fire too. What did they do? Oh, no, 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 honey. This was just so that they could get an audience with the Lord. He said, what did they do wrong to require this atonement? They were, the sin offering was supposedly for Aaron and Moses and them just so that they could handle the other stuff on behalf of the people. But all of this was so that they could see something. Yahweh gonna show up and make an appearance. So they was doing all of this so that they could be graced with the glory of the Lord. That part. Yeah. Oh dear is right. Let me see. Then he killed the ox and the ram, the sacrifice of peace offerings for the people, and Aaron's sons handed him the blood and he threw it against the sides of the altar. So he's still throwing animal blood. Now you done threw the blood of 4 different animals you done flung around this altar and smearing it all over the breast and the horns and the whatever of the altar. But the fat pieces of the ox and of the ram, the fat tail and that which covers the entrails, and the kidneys and the long lobe of the liver, they put the fat pieces on the breasts of the altar, and he burned the fat pieces on the altar, but the breast and the right thigh Aaron waved for a wave offering before the Lord, as Moses commanded. Then Aaron lifted up his hands toward the people and blessed them, and he came down from offering the sin offering and the burnt offering and the peace offerings. And Moses and Aaron went into the tent of meeting, and when they came out, they blessed the people, and the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people. And the fire came out from before the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the pieces of fat on the altar. And when all the people saw it, they shouted and fell on their faces. Now, every time Moses, like I said, except that one time he sat down for barbecue under the tree with Abraham, whenever Yahweh shows up, it's always in smoke or fire. Always. So now after they done did all of that, they done laid out the fat and all of the choice pieces that Yahweh like. They done laid it up on top of there. They done flung the blood around and all of that. And so they done did everything he told them to do. And so he come down with his little flashbang, his little special pyrotechnics effect, so that they don't actually get to see him. They see the flash from the fire and the glory of the Lord come down. He swooped down and consume all of that stuff. No, again, Natalie Rose, every time he shows up in the Bible, it's either in a pillar of fire or a pillar of smoke. He appeared to Moses in the burning bush. Don't remember that? He led the nation of Israel around by day and by a column of smoke, and by night by a column of fire, and led them around lost for 40 years for a trip that shouldn't have took them no more than 11 weeks, just out of spite. You said no thanks, you get DoorDash. I know that's right. But again, these people done rope themselves off into this, and this is what they're choosing to do. This don't sound like an enlightened group of people that we should be continuing to follow the traditions of. These are a very simple-minded, barbaristic people that have been conned into worshiping an absolute monster of a beast. But it gets even better. Now, Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, and this is the beginning of chapter 10, if you want to look it up in Leviticus. Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, each took his censer and put fire in it and laid incense on it and offered unauthorized fire before the Lord. Hold on. It says, or strange. So, after all of that funk in there from killing 7 animals, and flinging their blood all around the altar and burning their hairy heads on the altar and throwing the grain on top of it and all the rest of that, you know it done raised quite a stench in the place. So Aaron's sons come through with their incense burners, but Yahweh didn't tell them to do that part. I'm sure they were just trying to clear the air because, duh. But Yahweh don't like. Remember we said certain scents are pleasing to certain beings and certain scents are very irritating to what we call demons. They don't like incense, especially the holy woods, the frankincense, the myrrh, the palo santo, the copal, and all of those type. They can't stand it. Well, Yahweh don't like incense apparently, because Nadab and Abihu lit incense after all of this flesh burning, and he had not commanded them to do that. It says, and fire came out from before the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, this is what the Lord has said, among those who are near me I will be sanctified, and before all the people I will be glorified. And Aaron held his peace. And Moses called Mishael and Elzaphan, sons of Uzziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said to them, come near, carry your brothers away from the front of the sanctuary and out of the camp. So they came near and carried them in their coats out of the camp, as Moses had said. And Moses said to Aaron and to Eleazar and to Ithamar his sons, do not let the hair of your heads hang loose, and do not tear your clothes, lest you die, and wrath come upon all the congregation. But let your brothers, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning that the Lord has kindled. And do not go outside the entrance of the tent of meeting, lest you die. For the anointing oil of the Lord is upon you. And they did according to the word of Moses. So now, hey, Rochelle, how are you? So literally, Nadab and Abihu, to clear the air after all of this blood flinging and the sacrificing and the burning of the flesh and all the rest of that, to try to clear the air, they come in with their incense burners and swinging the incense. And Yahweh got so angry at them doing that he struck them dead right there in front of their daddy. Moses and Aaron were priests in the temple. Nadab and Abihu were serving in the temple, and Yahweh killed that man's children right in front of him. And Moses said, Aaron, don't even react. I know it's bad. I know you sad. Don't pull your hair. Don't rip your clothes. Don't show no kind of emotion, or he'll kill you too. Who would keep signing up to serve a God like this, people? Make it make sense. Christians today keep coming with that. His ways are not our ways. We don't know. All his ways are righteous and just. Bullshit. This is neither righteous nor just. You done had your bloodbath, Yahweh. You done got your barbecue, Yahweh. These people are in here about to throw up because you've been flinging the full blood animals, the blood of 7 animals that they done sacrificed for your behind. And because they want to clear the air with some incense, you strike these men down dead in front of their daddy and dare him to even show any kind of grief for his sons. And they supposed to still suck it up and keep serving you anyway. Make it make sense, people. Now, I can't remember who said it, but we're going to jump on over here to Revelation because I love to get in Revelation. Before we do that, I am going to read John because some folks don't believe us. And I like to start in John 1:1 because everybody want to talk about the things. Again, you can see different Elohim being discussed in these scriptures. All when it says God in here in the Bible, every time it say God is not referring to Yahweh. This is where we get it twisted because the church has lied to us and told us that. But there's more than one Elohim being discussed in these scriptures. In the gospel according to John, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. He was in the, probably should have said the Word was Elohim, and the Word was El Shaddai, the son of the Elohim. But however, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. He was in the beginning with the Elohim. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Now, truthfully, if you've read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, this is where it really starts making sense that there's a very high likelihood that Yeshua is the second incarnation of Thoth, because Thoth was Elohim or El Shaddai. He was with the Elohim from the very beginning here on earth. There was not anything that was made. All things were made through Thoth, and without him, there was not anything made that was made by the Elohim here on earth. Enki was the primary geneticist, Ninmah was his second, and Thoth was his third. Thoth was the one that solved the DNA issue to get Adam and Eve to become a fertile breeding pair. Up until then, Ninmah carried the Adamo in her womb when she figured out the Petri dish piece. Ninmah carried the Adamo in her womb. Damkina carried Eve in her womb. Enki figured it out, but once Adam and Eve were born, they were still sterile. It was Thoth that had been studying our DNA and figured out the issue. And again, go look at the geneticist and listen to the scientists talking today. They will tell you what separates us. We have a redundancy in our DNA. It says that chromosome 2 at some point in our DNA was redundant, and they cut off the redundant ends and spliced chromosome 2 to create our 23rd chromosome. That's Thoth, baby. Not anything was made that was made. All things was made through him. And he was known as the light of the world. Yeshua was known as the light of the world. He was known as the Word and the Logos. Yeshua was known as the Word and the Logos. He was known as the Son of Man. Yeshua was known as the Son of Man. So now when John comes along here, and again, Gabriel came to Elizabeth and told her that she was going to have a special child, that basically is God's baby. The Elohim is going to have a baby through you. And John came about. And then 6 months later, Gabriel came to Joseph and Mary and told them the same thing, that you going to have this baby, but Joseph, she ain't out there cheating on you, and you're not going to father this baby. This is a baby. This is the Elohim's baby. This is a very special being. And it's very likely that both of those women were impregnated through artificial insemination, not immaculate conception. Because we're talking about advanced beings from another planet that were very intensely involved in genetic experimentation. Look at the wall of the pyramids if you don't think that Enki and Thoth was involved with genetic experimentation. Right? Right. You said when a tiny bit of telomere wears down through cell production, it causes cancer in that cell. Yeah, but that's because our telomeres were capped. If they had not been artificially capped at Enlil's insistence, we would still be living 50,000 years like Adapa did. Adapa lived 15 shars. Yeah. Which would have put, or 14, like about 14 and a half shars. According to them, he was born, Adapa was born in the 93rd shar, and he died in the 108th shar, according to the Lost Book of Enki. Adapa lived 50,000 years. Even in the Bible, it says Methuselah lived 965 years. That was even after the capping, I guess the initial capping of the telomeres. I'm not sure exactly where in the timeline Methuselah was born, but he's mentioned in the Lost Book too. So yeah, our lifespans were deliberately genetically shortened. And all of that cancer stuff that we see, the mass ramping up of cancer that we see now is a result. It almost has to be a result of the industrialization that's happened over the past 150 to 175 years. Yes, there was a such thing as cancer. Our bodies have cancer cells all the time, but normally we just get rid of them and go on about our business. But these metastasizing cancers that are taking people out like now, that's a very recent thing to the planet within the past 175 years or so, because of all the chemical overload and the sugar overload and the drug, all that stuff. But anywho, yeah. So in John 1:1, it says that the word was with the Elohim and all the rest of that. And then we get down to 3:16. It says, "For the Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. For the Elohim did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that he might be saved through him, that the world might be saved through him." So we're told that Yeshua's sacrifice is to buy back our sinful state, because we're so sinful and dirty. That's not what 3:16 don't say that. It says that we were sent so that whoever believes like him might not perish but have eternal life. And Yeshua was not sent to condemn us, to bring to our attention how sinful and dirty we were, but in order that the world might be saved through him. And that goes back to what Thoth was saying in the Emerald Tablets too. Once he attained his immortality, he asked, I'm not doing tarot questions here, Celine. You ain't seen me say nothing about tarot. We're discussing the Bible right now. So obviously, if you really done, if you want to be, or if they want to be, I don't know. I'm not even going there. But yeah, you have to catch me another time on another channel, because I don't do tarot on this channel. But yeah. So then we get to, hold on. My eye fell over here on John chapter 4 in verse 31. I had highlighted it before. It says, he who comes from above is above all. He who is of the earth belongs to the earth and speaks in an earthly way. He who comes from heaven is above all. He bears witness to what he has seen and heard, yet no one receives his testimony. So he's speaking about himself kind of in third person, because he told them he didn't come from here. He told them straight up he didn't come from this place, and they didn't want to believe him. Whoever receives his testimony sets his seal to this, that the Elohim is true. For he whom Elohim has sent utters the words of the Elohim, for he gives his spirit without measure. The Father loves the Son and has given all things into his hand. Whoever believes in the Son has eternal life. Whoever does not obey the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of the Elohim remains on him. But again, they still don't want to hear it. Now, and then again in John chapter 5, they got mad because he healed somebody on the Sabbath. And then in verse 18 of chapter 5, it says, this was why the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him, because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. How is calling God your Father making you equal with God? Again, this is how they twisting stuff to justify the nasty crap that they wanted to do. Because he's telling them, you can bow and scrape to this Elohim over here all you want. I'm not from that Elohim. I'm over here representing a different Elohim. My Father sent me, and I do the will of my Father. I'm not bound to follow your Elohim and his rules. If you want to call that one your father, you can, but that's not my Father. My Father that sent me, and I'm doing what he told me to do. And then they turned around and said that he's saying that he's making himself equal with God. He did not say that. That's what they said. And that's the premise that they used to try to deliver him up to the Romans with. And that's when Pontius Pilate said, I can find no fault with this man, because he questioned him. Oh, you said that you were this, you said that, and they calling you the king of the Jews. He was like, that's what they calling me, but that don't mean that's what I am, you know? So then Yeshua turned around to straighten them out. He says, so Yeshua said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of his own accord, but only what he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, that the Son does likewise. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all that he himself is doing. And I don't understand why people can understand that on a human scale, but they can't understand it out of Yeshua. Because somebody said my daddy was cool, I'm here, everything that I know, my daddy taught me everything I know. Humans can understand that doesn't mean that that son is saying that he is equal to his father. It ain't even saying that his father taught him everything that the father knows. He's just saying, my father taught me everything I know. I do the will of my father. My father done been instructing me and told me what to do. The Father loves the Son and shows him all that he is doing. And the Jews felt some type of way about that. And greater works than these will he show him, so that you may marvel. For as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, so shall the Son of Man give life to whom he will. For the Father judges no one, but has given all judgment to the Son, that all may honor the Son just as they honor the Father. Whoever does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life. He does not come into judgment, but has passed from death to life. Hey, Christy B, how are you? So, again, if you go back to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, when Thoth was receiving his immortality, he was talking to the dweller. Enki, in his spiritual form, when he's in the Agwanti, in the halls of Amenti, in his spiritual robes, so to speak, he's known as the dweller. And he's saying, in part of the mission of Thoth and the dweller was to help humanity escape the binding 3D loop of death and incarnation and the black magic spells and all the rest of that stuff that his brother and the evil Elohim had basically put over them, to help humanity expand their consciousness so that they could escape the loop trap of death and attain immortality just like Thoth did. Took Thoth a long time to do that. And he understood it wasn't easy. He gives us a lot of instructions on how to behave in the astral, how to get to certain states of enlightenment, how to fast and go into these meditative states, and gives us certain phrases to say and frequencies to repeat and all of those kinds of things. Oh, welcome, Kirsty B. I'm glad to have you in. And way yay, as a new subscriber, welcome and thank you. Appreciate you. So now, I'm not going to read all of John 5 because the main part that I normally get to is chapter 8. Because again, they just kept not getting it. He kept repeating it and they still wasn't getting it. And he repeated and they don't get it and whatever. But by the time they get down to chapter 8, okay, we'll start in 31. I usually start somewhere around 42, but I'm going to go back a little bit here before. So Yeshua said to the Jews who had believed him, "If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." But the problem is they wasn't abiding in his word. They went exactly opposite of what he said and went back to the Yahweh. They were trying to frame what Yeshua was telling them within the framework of existing Yahweh worship, and them two things were not fitting, and that's what he was trying to tell them. They just were not getting it, which he understood. Yeah, they wasn't, but he tried. Let me see. They answered him, "We are offspring of Abraham and have never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free?" First of all, that's a lie. They didn't forget already that they was enslaved in Egypt, didn't they? They forgot that part already. We the offspring of Abraham. We never been enslaved to nobody. What was that whole thing with the parting of the Red Sea and the Passover and that whole Egypt debacle? Yeah, y'all were enslaved. Absolutely were. For sure. And still was enslaved, because even after they were delivered out of Egypt, they was enslaved and worshiped the Yahweh, because he basically told them, "I'm a jealous God and I'll kill all of y'all where you stand right now." Go read the account. When they came out of Egypt, he threatened to kill every single person in the nation of Israel right down there at the foot of Mount Sinai, because they thought he had abandoned them and they were afraid. So they went back to praying to the God that they had been worshiping while they was in Egypt, because he hadn't told them how he wanted them to worship properly yet. He hadn't given them the Mosaic law yet. He left them for 40 days and 40 nights just stranded and abandoned at the foot of Mount Sinai. And they got scared and asked Aaron to make them a golden calf so that they could pray and ask for forgiveness from the deity that they had just left behind in Egypt. And when Yahweh found out about it, he said he was going to kill every last Israelite that was out there. So you didn't brought them out of Egypt, and gonna kill them right there before they even get an opportunity to learn how you want them to worship. This is the nature of Yahweh, though. And in order to prevent all of them from being killed, Joshua and the Levitical priests went through the nation of Israel and killed 3,000 people that night to appease Yahweh. Why is he keeps demanding all this blood sacrifice up to and including his own so-called son? Because one, that wasn't his son, that was his brother's son, so he don't give a crap. That's why. But people don't see that part. Yahweh wasn't gonna kill his own son. He don't take care of his own people, true enough, but he wasn't finna kill his own son. That was a power play. It was a pissing contest between two brothers. And the one that keep trying to correct people and bring them out of this dark black mirror mental enslavement of religion that Yahweh done stirred up on this planet, he's gonna make sure that that one get unalived up out of here. That part. Let's see. Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not remain in the house forever. The son remains forever. So if the son sets you free, you will be free indeed. I know that you are offspring of Abraham, yet you seek to kill me because my word finds no place in you. I speak of what I have seen with my father, and you do what you have heard from your father. I speak of what I have seen with my father, and you do what you have heard from your father. So obviously, they're not the same father or the same Elohim. Hey, Rana, how are you? Welcome, welcome. So then he said, they answered him, Abraham is our father. Yeshua said to them, if you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the works Abraham did. And unfortunately, they were, and they did. That's the part that people don't get. They are children of Abraham. But like I've said before, Abraham was not as wise as we've given him credit for being. He was a liar, and he took up with a God that was a so-called God that was a liar. Hey, King David. So yeah, they're children of Abraham, but Abraham chose poorly. They're offspring of Moses, but Moses chose poorly. Just because monkey see, monkey do, just because great 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 granddaddy did it, do that mean we got to keep doing it, y'all, forever, forever, ever? I don't think so. Um, Yeah, they answered him, Abraham is our father. Yeshua said to them, if you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the works Abraham did, but now you seek to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God, or the Elohim. This is not what Abraham did. You are doing your works, you are doing the works your father did. They said to him, we were not born of sexual immorality. We have one father, even the Elohim. Yeshua said to them, if Elohim were your father, you would love me, for I came from the Elohim and I am here. I came not of my own accord, but he sent me. Why do you not understand what I say? It is because you cannot bear to hear my word. You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. But because I tell the truth, you do not believe me. And like I said, the very relationship with Abraham and Yahweh before the nation of Israel got to be a nation of Israel, like I said, before there was a spark in Abraham's eye. Abraham at that point had no children at all when he first got with Yahweh. And Yahweh said, yo, Abraham, if you agree to follow me, I'll give you a son in your old age, and I will make your name a mighty people. So even before the nation of Israel became the nation of Israel, hey, Paul, welcome in, or welcome back, I should say. When they got with Abraham, when Abraham got with him, the first thing out the gate was Yahweh did was basically set Abraham up to tell a lie. He had left Ur and took his wife and all his stuff out there into the desert the famine came and they were kind of struggling out there, so they needed to go back into Egypt. And Abraham was afraid. Instead of Yahweh backing him up, you're supposed to be such an all-powerful Elohim and you got this man's back and all of that. Instead of Yahweh taking care of Abraham and providing for him, Abraham wound up lying to the Pharaoh. He told Sarah to lie and say that she was the sister. She was Abraham's sister instead of his wife, because she was very beautiful. She was younger than him, and he was afraid that the Pharaoh would want to take her to wife for himself, and that he would want her so bad that he would kill Abraham. So Abraham was afraid for his life, so he told his wife to lie and say that she was his sister. And she did, and the Pharaoh did want her. And the Pharaoh was giving her gifts and all that, trying to court her and all of this good stuff. And instead of Yahweh setting the record straight or providing for his person, he went in and threw down scourges. He laid scourges and curses down on the Pharaoh. And when the Pharaoh found, he was like, why in the world didn't you just tell me the truth? Here, take your woman, take your stuff. I don't want to covet another man's wife. All you had to do was tell me that this is your wife, and I would have went on about my business. But you just sat here and told me it was your sister. I'm trying to figure out how to marry her. Man, get on up out of here. Take your cattle, take all the stuff I gave her. You can have it as a gift. No, go, just go. But again, if Yahweh had been taking proper care of them, none of that would have been necessary. Hey, Mr. Johnny, hi, welcome in. So he was saying to them, you're not from the same Elohim that sent me. Y'all talking about, y'all flinging Abraham around like it means something, but Abraham is not my father. This is not who sent me. The Elohim that sent me, you don't know nothing about this. You over here, you ain't even doing the work. You ain't even doing what Abraham did. But if you were, you would know better. But you're worshiping your father, the devil. And again, Yeshua was very familiar with the ancient text. We read this book like it is the be all end all, like it's the oldest of the ancient text. It's one of the newest of the so-called ancient texts. There was plenty of other ancient texts out there, and Yeshua, having been on the path of the initiate, 18 years of spiritual study, would have been very familiar with the ancient text. So he understood that Yahweh was indeed Enlil, and that Enlil had been a liar. He knew that Enlil's title was Satan of the Eden. So when he called him a liar and a manslayer and called him the devil, Yeshua knew exactly what he was saying, and he meant that. Yeah. And he said, whoever is of God hears the word of God. The reason why you do not hear them is that you are not of God or Elohim. But still, he was talking about a very specific Elohim. He was like, you can't hear me because you ain't from me. You ain't of me. This isn't connecting with you. You are so busy following behind this other Elohim. You can't hear what I'm saying. My father done sent me and gave me a very specific message. And if you were in tune with me, you would hear what I'm saying and it would sound good to you. It would sound like the truth. You'd be able to identify it if you were genuinely tapped into the Elohim that I'm tapped into. But you can't hear me because you over here tapped into the devil. That's what he told him. Now somebody threw up that they wanted to look at Revelation 3 and verse 9. We going there. I'm going to start at verse 8. I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie, Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. Now, a lot of folks want to do this thing to slam on the Jews of today, and I get it, and that's ain't no point in denying it. The Jews that's sitting over in Israel today are not the nation of Israel. They're not. They are absolutely not the same Israelites that was initially covenanted with Abraham. But that don't even matter, because we're at a point now when you start talking about segueing out of Judaism into Christianity, because this Bible was a vehicle to launch Christianity, and supposedly Christians are supposed to be the like spiritual Israel. Hey, Glove 300, welcome in. And hey, CC, welcome back. So the like I said, Christians are supposed to be basically spiritual Israel. So we're not even going to split hairs over the original Jews plus the interlopers and all that, because at the end of the day, both of them still worshiping Yahweh. The light-skinned Jews over there in Israel today still worshiping Yahweh, and the darker ones sitting over in Ethiopia still clinging to that damn demon Yahweh. So they both wrong. Cousins on the opposite sides of the blanket, but they both wrong. Now, it says, because you have kept my word about patient endurance, I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world to try those who dwell on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold fast what you have, so that no one may seize your crown. The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my Elohim. Never shall he go out of it. And I will write on him the name of my Elohim and the name of the city of my Elohim, the New Jerusalem, which comes down from my Elohim out of heaven, and my own new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. I love this scripture because it ties in. When I started really understanding Revelation 21 and 22, it just really blew my socks off. And we're going to go there, because people in Revelation, they get so tied up in trying to figure out the symbology of the different horsemen and the beast and the different heads, what the heads mean, and the Medes and the Persians, and getting all caught up in that. And I'm not saying that's not an important or an interesting thing to do, but people get stuck there. That's kind of sort of immaterial, because we reach a point where, hold on. Hey, Douglas, how are you? Welcome, welcome. The reason I say it's kind of immaterial, because there comes a point, regardless of who was the original Israel and who is the current Israel and all the rest of that, there comes a point in time where it starts to bring back Genesis into the Revelation story. At the end of Genesis, let me see if I can find the prophecy somewhere after. Hold on. Genesis, I think it was in 3. Hold on. Okay. So it said, the Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all beasts of the field. On your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Now, people want to take that literally and try to make that be about a curse on an actual snake. No. Somebody mentioned earlier, Enlil, Yahweh, Jehovah, is known to the Gnostics as Yaldabaoth, a dragon, a serpent. But also, you have to consider Yahweh and Enki were both serpent handlers. The first school of mysticism on this planet was called the Order of the Serpents. But even still, the prophecy here is that there will be lifelong planetary enmity between the Son of Man and the serpent. But at the end of it all, it says that the serpent will bruise the Son of Man in the heel, but the Son of Man will bruise the serpent in the head. Now, if there's a coup d'etat, if you will, a meetup between a human and a serpent, if the serpent gets bruised in the head, that's a death blow. If you don't believe me, try it. Put on a stiff pair of heels and stomp on a snake's head and grind it into the ground. Snake is done. It may hurt the heel, but unless that snake gets a strike in the heel for venom, even if it's a bony head, like a large bony headed serpent, it might bruise the heel, but that's not a death blow. The Son of Man will issue a death blow to the serpent. That's in Genesis chapter 3. Hey, D.O., how are you? Welcome. So now we come back to Revelation chapter 12, and it says, a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains in the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, and on his head 7 diadems. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. She gave birth to a male child, one who was to rule all the nations with an iron rod. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. Now, the 1,260 days, and again, they get all of the preachers, everybody gets so caught up in that. But honestly, if you look at the day is to the Lord is 1,000 years, that 1,000 years is a day type scenario, it makes me wonder if it's just referring to the entering into another zodiacal age. Now, truthfully, I think a zodiacal age is 2,000. Was it 2,000? Let me see if I can find out. I think it's 2,680 years, but I'm not sure. So that it's not quite, the math ain't quite mathing on that, but hold on a second, y'all. Let me see. $2,160 years is a zodiacal age. So it's interesting that this could be an honest in transposition, in translation, when they were actually putting the Bible down, because all of that stuff was copied by hand then. Because I find it interesting. It says is to be nourished for 1,260 days, but as an astrological age is approximately 2,160 years. And Yeshua was the keeper of the age of Pisces, but he told us again, and he didn't actually say that. It was in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. When they talk about getting ready for the Last Supper, in that scripture, it says in all 3 of those accounts, it says that he told them to go to the gate, and that the man with the water jug would show them to the upper room. The man with the water jug is Aquarius. Lord Enki is the quintessential Aquarius. Okay, well, guess what? Daughter of Zion, if you only following the King James Version, you really gonna miss out on some stuff. Because number one, King James was not a Christian. The King James Version that's just that, it's a version, it's not a translation. And just in case you didn't know, and again, don't take my word for it, go look it up. King James's other greatest hit was an encyclopedia of demonology. So if you following behind King James, you following yourself lost, sister. Just letting you know. Okay? Okay. Cool. Now we're going to look at Luke 21. And again, Luke was not written by Luke, y'all. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, whoever wrote the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, never met Yeshua, period. The Gospel of Luke was written like 60 or 70 AD, maybe even 110. Let's look it up and see. Hold on. The Gospel of Luke was likely written between 60 and 80 CE. Yeshua was supposedly unalived in 33 CE. And they, what you mean to tell me that this man that was supposedly walked with Yeshua and supposedly knew everything that was going on and all the rest of that and waited 50 years after the fact to say anything at all about it? Surely we can't remain in that level of ignorance and keep letting the church spoon feed us these ridiculous lies, daughter of Zion. But I'm gonna look up Luke 21:25 so you can see what it's saying. We can discuss it because I'm not afraid of it. But when you come busting up in here, know what you talking about, sis. No, I'm not interpreting anything. That's historical fact. What you're choosing to do is listen to interpretations based on misinformed and deliberately deceptive church hierarchy. And the reason I know that too is because I've discussed these things that I talk about with seminary trained preachers. I ain't talking about some dude that just had a feeling in their heart and decided that they wanted to jump into a ministry because it pays some folks some money and be fat cats. I'm talking about people that actually went to seminary to be prepared to teach Christianity. And they'll tell you that what I'm saying is the truth, but they're taught it in seminary and then they're told not to teach it to the people, lest the people be confused. In other words, lest people learn the truth and decide to stop following these lies. I'm talking about watch the spiritual evidence you're posting before making. I don't need to watch no spiritual evidence you posting, because guess what? If you're following behind a demon trickster, you may actually have what you think is spiritual evidence, but that don't mean it's the truth of what Yeshua was teaching. That part. Yeshua done showed up. I mean, Yahweh showed up several times in the Bible and do his little flashbang black magic nonsense. He gave Moses sticks that turned on the ground and became snakes and ate up the other magician's snakes. That's sorcery, my love. Yes, Yahweh is all about sorcery. And Yahweh is the same cat that they call Jehovah. And that is not the same Elohim that Yeshua was pointing to. He told the Jews that they were worshiping the devil. I do have revelation knowledge. And if you don't like what I'm saying, goodbye. All you got to do is bounce, sis. Because you're not going to come in here and tell me different from what Yeshua done showed me. And again, Paul Wallace was an archdeacon in the Anglican Church for 33 years, a teacher of teachers and priests and everything else. You ain't gonna tell me that you know more than that about the Bible or anything else. And even he's agreeing on that. So just because you the one somebody that ain't no damn body, that I don't even know who you are, you gonna bebop up in here and tell me that I'm supposed to just change everything that I know and have read and seen and followed behind and read the books and listened to the documentaries and went to the audio book and all of the cross references back and forth a billion different ways. But because you say so, now I'm supposed to just put aside everything I know. You 70 years old and you could still be a fool. I'm 57, so you say that to say what, daughter of Zion? Just because you 70, it's a lot of old fools out there that will never wake up and do not know what the hell they talking about. Plenty of them. That part. Old don't make you right. It don't even make you smart. And the fact that you talking about, you dare to sit up there talking about sending somebody to the pit, you still stuck in your infantile religiosity, because hellfire is not a biblical teaching. That is a church doctrine. It is not factual. It is not biblical. It comes from pagan origins. In Revelation, and we're about to get over there, you don't tell nobody that they're going to hell. The lake of fire in Revelation is reserved for Satan and his minions. It says that the humans, the people who followed Satan, they would be destroyed. It didn't say they'd be burnt forever in hell. It said they'd be destroyed, and Satan and his minions and death and Hades would be put in the lake of fire. You're right. I shouldn't bicker with heathens, which is you, daughter of Zion. You're good advice for you. And on that reserve, I'm going to ignore you, because I will no longer cast my pearls before swine, and I will no longer bicker with a heathen like you. daughter of Zion. But you have a good night. That's all you got to do. That part. Oh, you didn't have to get rid of her. Bye. You ain't got to delete nothing she got to say. Her ignorance is making her shine real good up in here. So that's the part that get me. If you don't like what I got to say, why are you here? Why are you even here? Because they want to continue to perpetuate Yahweh's lies. They will follow that dragon all the way. They keep that same pit she keep talking about I'm gonna be in, she'll follow him right off in there. The scriptures tell you that a third of the population of earth will continue to follow the dragon right on down because of the things that they're doing. Yahweh, Yeshua told them, in that day you'll say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name and perform many powerful works in your name and expel demons in your name? And yet I'll say to them, I never knew you. Get away from me, you workers of lawlessness. It's a whole lot of self sanctified, ultra religious, egotistical, arrogant behind Christians that's going to be having a real bad oh shit moment in that day. They really will. But anywho, I'm trying to find where's the scripture. Oh dang, it got deleted. My bad. Luke 20, I think it was 21:25, or was it 25:21? Let me see. I was trying to get to the scripture, but let me see. Couldn't have been 21:25 because it's just talking about the signs and the sun and the moon and the stars, the earth, the stress of nation, the perplexity because of the roaring of the sea and the waves, people fainting with fear and foreboding of what is coming for the world, and the powers of the heaven will be shaken. Well, okay, it was 21:25. Well, that's what I'm reading. I'm reading Luke 21:25, but that don't even, what kind of point was that supposed to be making? I'm reading it. It don't, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And why would that? I'm gonna read it one more time to see if I can get something out of it that she's talking about. And there will be signs in sun and moon and stars, and on the earth distress of nations and perplexity because of the roaring of the sea and the waves. People fainting with fear and with foreboding of what is coming on the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. And then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now, when these things begin to take place, straighten up and raise your heads because your redemption is drawing near. And truthfully, if she would have actually stuck around and listened to what I'm saying, that's exactly what I talk about all the time. All the time. Because the Millerites thought that Yeshua would be physically coming back in 1844. And then after the Millerite, they called it the Great Disappointment when he didn't show up. The Seventh Day Adventists and the Jehovah's Witnesses were looking for his physical return to around the turn of the 20th century, going from the 19th century into the 20th century. And like I said, when Yeshua made it very clear to me, he was not likely to be coming back in physical form because why would he? If they killed him the last time he was here physically, and these same dragon, evil, ignorant, stubborn people still do not want to hear the truth of what he was saying, all they would do is turn around and try to kill him again. And exactly, I'm not in fear. And the reason I'm not in fear is because I stopped listening to the fear mongering that is Christianity and went back and actually read this Bible for understanding. The King James Version has deliberately tweaked and mistranslated certain Bible passages to help support the Christian deceptions that religion has. So at the end of the day, there's no need for me to fear because finally I was able to see what Yeshua was actually talking about and who he was really talking about when he told the Jews that they did not know the Elohim that sent him, that they were worshiping their father, the devil. Yeah. Now, when we get over here, Revelation 3:12, let me read it again so we can get the scriptural correlations because this part was fascinating to me when it said that the one who conquers I will make him a pillar in the temple of my Elohim, never shall he go out of it. And I will write on him the name of my Elohim and the name of my city, of the city of my Elohim, the New Jerusalem, which comes down from my Elohim out of heaven, and my own new name. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of this out of order. We're going to come back to it because while that wording is fresh in our minds, we have to go to Revelation 21. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from the Elohim, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the place of the Elohim is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and the Elohim himself will be with them as their Elohim. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more, neither shall mourning, nor crying, nor pain be any more, for the former things have passed away. And he who was seated on the throne said, Behold, I am making all things new. Also, he said, Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And truthfully, that's the part, because he said the one seated on the throne. The Elohim is not seated on the throne. That's the Father. He said, My Father, my judgments are light, and my Father judges not. The Father has given judgment to the one seated on the throne, whether you see him here in Revelation, in the book of Enoch, or whatever. It's Yeshua that will be placed back on the throne. And he said, Write it down, for these words are trustworthy and true. How many times in the gospel did he say, Truly, truly, I say unto you? That was his thing. Truly, truly. So he's telling you again, take it to the bank, write it down, highlight it, mark it down. Mark my words. I'm telling you this day that this is happening. After he done already told you that his Elohim would be descending with New Jerusalem from the heavens in Revelation 21, it tells you that he'll be descending with New Jerusalem from the heavens with his Elohim. The Elohim is going to enter into a peace contract with humanity. And he says in 22:15, I, Yeshua, have sent my angel to testify to you about these things for the churches. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright morning star. Ben Carson, yeah. Okay. I'm not familiar with Ben Carson as much. I listen to Billy Carson all the time, but I'm not sure about Ben Carson as much. Now, the thing that really gets me with this Elohim and the New Jerusalem coming down, what people don't understand is this right here in chapter 21. This cannot possibly be talking about Yahweh, because Yahweh got put down like a dirty dog in 20. You said, oh, you talking about Billy? Okay, yeah. In chapter 20, it says, I saw an angel coming down from heaven, holding in his hands the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain. And he seized the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and threw him into the pit, and shut it and sealed it over him, so that he might not deceive the nations any longer until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be released for a little while. Now, this right here is a mouthful, because old sister girl was trying to tell me about going into the pit, but that's not what the scriptures say the pit is for. The pit is for the binding of Satan, the devil, and his demons. But it said in the first go around in 20 that he would be bound for 1,000 years. And it's interesting because, again, Yeshua was very familiar with the ancient texts, the older texts that were way older than the Bible. He was familiar with a lot of that stuff because he had spent 18 years studying, esoteric, mystical. He was in the mystery schools as a student for 18 years. So he was very well aware that Yahweh was referred to as Yaldabaoth, the dragon. He was very well aware that Yahweh was also known before he was known as Yahweh. He was known as Enlil, whose title was Satan of the Eden. He was aware of that prophecy that was given in the Garden of Eden about the Son of Man bruising the serpent on the head and the serpent bruising the Son of Man on the heel. Well, you know what? You had him put to death here on this earth, supposedly, but truthfully, people understand he really wasn't even put to death. But you do that whole black magic binding ritual and the drink of my flesh and the eat of my blood and the Easter ritual and the resurrection Sunday and all of that. There's a whole lot of black magic in that. That's a conversation for another day. But there are plenty of people on this planet that understand that Yeshua survived the so called crucifixion. Some say he lived to be 48 years old. Some say he lived to be 80 something years old. And that he has an active bloodline here. Contrary to whoever said that Yeshua was gay, there are no Yeshua. It indicates the people in the other parts of the world that know where he's at and got shrines to him and Mary and Mother Mary and all the rest of that where they supposedly are buried to this day, understand that he had children. You said, do mystery schools still exist? To some degree, yes, Brooklyn Miss. They are not. Here's the thing, I was invited to one back in 2020. They're not in the caves, in the mountain. There may be still some that still do that, but some of those orders have been corrupted. But the ascended masters are going to disseminate knowledge anyway. And they basically, the mystery schools have become more of an individual thing through meditation and awareness. In 2020, well, okay, let me back up. 2016 is when I started meditating. By 2017 in the spring, I was aware that some kind of a transformation was happening, but I wasn't aware of what it was going to be. I was nowhere spiritually focused like I am now. I wasn't reading the Bible, wasn't doing none of that. Initially in meditation, I was being shown like cosmic concepts and stuff I didn't understand. You say you love the holy PB, whatever, white, read it twice. I have no idea what you're talking about, higher levels. So I don't know what that is. So I couldn't tell you. I haven't read it. Anyway, in 20, like I said, at first, I didn't even realize it. But when I first started meditating in those first several months, I was being shown Gnostic concepts, but in a picture form that I could kind of sort of understand. I wasn't seeing the fact of Yahweh being Yaldabaoth or anything else, but I was being shown like relative to humans on the earth and angels watching over us. Then you go out further and you had like the watchers watching them, and eventually I was taken further out to see like the aeons and then the four that surround the one, but I never was able to see. No, why would I want to do that? Again, white man Bible, black man Bible, all that racist nonsense, I don't have time for higher levels. I When I got tapped into this part of spirituality and became clairaudient, I asked, oh, I'm getting there now. Um, After about a year and a half of meditation, it seemed like I was being invited on the path of the mystic, and things started, like I said, just kind of going further and further down a different type of spiritual rabbit holes. You say you see, exactly. I was led once I understood that spirit was guiding me instead of me arguing against it and bucking against it. I just started leading where spirit and the algorithm was leading me, where my meditations were leading me, because I would see something in meditation and I didn't know why it was true. I just felt like it was true. And then within a few days, a week at the most, I would be led to a website or a documentary or a book or an audio book or something that would further explain what I was shown in meditation, confirm what I was already shown in meditation, whether it was the scientific, the medical, the spiritual, the philosophical, whatever explanation, to give me further context to what I was seeing in meditation. So I just kept doing that, kept doing that, kept doing that. By the time we got around to the world shutting down with the pandemic and all of that, instead of freaking out where everybody else was freaking out, since the world was shut down anyway, I just went all in and started like seriously meditating daily. I'd spend hours, get up early in the morning, first light. I'm sun gazing and doing the breath work and barefoot meditating out in the yard. Now, mind you, I spent the pandemic like 800 feet away from the Gulf of Mexico. I was by the intercoastal waterway, sitting in Sarasota, which is Stargate 2, 3, whichever, however you look at it. The energy is high. I'm hearing the music of the spheres. I'm hearing the planets singing. I'm out there getting my meditation on in this old house with a huge bathtub, doing salt, like 2 and 3 hour long salt baths 2 or 3 times a week. I'm all in. And my clairaudience opened up, and it opened up in such a way that I could no longer doubt that I was clairaudient. I was hearing things that I honestly did not know the answer to, that I had to look it up in Google, and Google was confirming for me things that I'm hearing in clairaudiently because I didn't know. And once I realized I was genuinely receiving clairaudiently, I asked for any of the ascended masters that were willing to work with me to please make themselves known to me. And within 24 hours, Yeshua, Saint Germain, and Thoth came in. Boom, just like that. Do I see visions? I don't, I'm more clairaudient. I mean, I do get, my visions play out more in meditation, like mind movies. It's not really, I don't see apparitions. I so want to see my guides in their natural form. People talking about angels in their natural form would be scary. I'm not scared. I want to see them. If Michael is 14 feet tall, I want to see him. I want to see Raphael. Has that happened yet? No. And I don't know if they think I'd be scared. I can't even work. I can't buck on if or when they choose to show themselves to me. Like I said, they talk to me, so that have to be enough. But I do. I mean, from time to time, I remember that show That's So Raven. I can't control when I get visions. I mean, some people can sit there and go, "Oh, I'm going to challenge so and so now," and they breathe a couple times and they're just spewing out something. My channeling is very spontaneous. The visions that I receive are very spontaneous. It'll be like dreamlike or just a knowing or what have you. But back to the mystery schools, back in 2020, shortly after I became clairaudient, I asked for the ascended masters and they came forward. Saint Germain told me we were going to do something really big together. And then I did a guided meditation asking for my spiritual gifts to be further opened. And shortly after that, I was led to tarot. I had always been very afraid of tarot, but I went ahead and instead of just listening to other readers, I went ahead and got myself a couple of decks so I could teach myself tarot as well. And that was very beneficial. And I did that for a while. But I was also led to a website. Well, I was looking because of Saint Germain. I had gone through the I Am Discourses of Saint Germain and then Secrets Revealed by Godfrey Ray King, who is half of the duo that channeled the I Am Discourses. His wife, oh, I can't think of her name. But anyway, it was Godfrey Ray King and his wife that channeled the I Am Discourses, and they also did Secrets Revealed, and I think it was called Unfinished Mystery. So I was listening to all of those, and then one day it got on me to go and look for the Saint Germain Foundation because it's still active on this planet. And through the Saint Germain Foundation, I was led to um, the Elemental Grace Alliance. That's another website. And if you're looking for esoteric information, please write that down. The Elemental Grace Alliance. I think it's a .com. I think it might be a .net. But they have like many courses and articles and all kinds of stuff. But when I went there, it just so happened that they were doing an initiation study group under Master Dwal Kul. And I responded to them, sent the email, and you had to apply for it, and they accepted me into the program. And it was like I want to say it was like a 16-week program. Yeah, it was like 4 months. Yeah, I think it was either 12 or 16 weeks. But we had like set times every day that we had certain lectures to read through and copy the notes and meditate on them. And it was all solo work. But in that information, it was a series of channeled messages and lectures from the esoteric societies that were going around. Those lectures from Dwal Kul were from like 1932, between 1932 and 1935. And they were talking about this nature of where spirituality would be heading on the planet through the age of Aquarius, that it would be about a 75 to 150 year rollout of some of these things, how Christianity was going to be shaping and morphed just because they bear the name Christ. I don't think Christianity, the name Christianity, is not going to be completely dismantled, but Christianity as we know it is going to be completely redone. Most of the religions that we know are going to be dismantled. But they were saying that the mystery schools are no longer in the mountains, in the cave, and all the rest of that, that are becoming out into the open because of the age of the internet and all that stuff becoming available. And it's eventually at some point we will have like public initiations, like mass initiations, because the awakening is ramping up and that's happening now. But they were saying like the ones that were going through that first, I think we were the second um like self-directed study group for that. They were just experimenting with that to see that if they could do that rather than bringing people into a fixed brick and mortar location to try to do the information and the initiations. It was all done through the ethers and telepathically and all. And at first I didn't think that anything was happening. I was wondering whether anything was happening. I'm like, how do I know if I'd have made it past the first initiation? How do I know if I made it to the second initiation? All of that. But the things, the confirmations that I started getting, y'all, that was a crazy year. I had so many physical confirmations. I've told y'all about some of them. I had like 3 Nande parakeets come and visit me, and blue jays jumping out the tree and jumping around making. I'm tied with Bocape. I've had a thing with birds my whole life, so I had a lot of bird activity. Nande parakeets ain't even native to Florida, but I had this insane conversation with Yeshua and came to some understandings about some things and all of that. And all of a sudden, I'm looking down there, 3 Nande parakeets that spent about 15 minutes visiting with me. Yes, Natalie Rose, the ibis. I tried to upload those pictures to my banner on the channel, but they're in my phone as a live shot, and they would not upload. But yeah, I've told the story on the channel. I had an incident where I was talking to a friend of mine in chatting through text, and I had gotten up to go put some clothes in the dryer, and I was talking about trying to get active on a YouTube channel and all that. And as I was putting the clothes in the dryer, I was thinking to myself, I really need to learn how to edit, and I need to do this, and I need to do that, and blah blah blah. I hadn't said anything to this friend. I finished putting the clothes in the dryer, came back to the desk to sit down and continue our little texting session, and they said, "I know how to edit." And I'm like, I didn't say nothing to you about editing. So we were telepathically linked. And I'm like, okay, cool. As we're having that conversation, another being that I was friends with for a long time, that I was telepathically linked, called me on the phone, and we started talking about some stuff. And I'm sitting there looking, and I was like, whoa, True, I think I'm gonna have to call you back. I got company. I looked out, and coming down the street, there was a congregation of ibis coming down the sidewalk into my house. Over 100 ibis walking down the sidewalk, and they stopped. Now we live direct, like smack dab in the middle of this little block near the ocean, but they walked down the sidewalk, stopped directly in front of our house. I went outside because I was sitting on the porch. We had a huge picture window, but I went outside to be closer to them and slipped and accidentally let the door go. So the door slammed, and I thought that that would have scared them away. They didn't leave. They allowed me to walk down the steps and come within like 2 or 3 feet of them. I'm milling around with all these birds in the yard, so much so that a car came down the street, and the car had to slow down and crawl through because they were spilling out into the street. They stayed out there in that street for about 10, 15 minutes or so. And instead of walking on down the rest of the way down the block, they crossed over to the other side of the street, walked back down the sidewalk to the stop sign, and then took off at the stop sign and flew away. Those were the kind of physical, like weird confirmation-y type things that I was happening. And the crazy part is, before that, up to, oh yeah, yeah, that I can do. I can post it to the group chat. Before I actually that happened, about 2 weeks before that, I had had a singular. When I asked, like I said, this is around the time when I'm asking for the ascended masters to come in, and like I said, Saint Germain, I became very aware. I was sent the I Am Discourses of Saint Germain in my feed. I then received the Yeshua letters in my feed, so I'm listening to that, understanding that. I'm doing the mantras and the So Hum and all of that. And one single ibis kept walking up every time I go outside to meditate for about a week. This ibis would come out there and he looking at me sideways and he doing this, he doing that. One of the last times I hadn't seen him for a while, and then this blue jay comes up one day, and the blue jay is standing out in the grass, and he hawking and squawking and jumping and jabbing. I mean, literally dancing a jig, jumping in the grass, on the sidewalk, in the grass, on the sidewalk. And he goes in the grass, and then all of a sudden, this ibis walks up to the blue jay, literally within like this close to the blue jay, and then he turned around. And they both sitting there, kind of looking at me. So I'm like, okay, I get it. I really get it now. And then a few days after that, I was visited by that congregation of 100 ibis. Um, Later on that year, I went through the 4 month initiation program. Later on in the fall, I found another kind of an initiation thing, and it's so weird because I found it on YouTube. I don't know how or why or whose channel it was on. I tried to save the playlist. I think they must have taken it down because I have looked for it several times since then, have never been able to find it again. But it was a 6 week meditation program of like daily meditations and little videos and stuff to listen to and all the rest of that. And during that time, it also encouraged me to listen to like the way of, I can't even think of it now, but they are the Jeshua channelings, like the way of the heart, I think is one of them, and something else. But I was listening to that kind of stuff. And at the end of that 6 week program, it said, if you so happen to finish the program around the solstice or Christmas, and I was, it said, instead of celebrating Christmas per se, for that Christmas, go out in the morning and commune with Yeshua and accept your Christed beingness. Now, mind you, the people that I'm around, I ain't even really wanting to tell people that this is what I'm doing at this time, but I did. I got up and put on a beautiful caftan and got myself all together. And it was kind of cold, but I went out to the beach that morning and, did my thing, all the rest of that. And it's so funny because as I'm out there, first off, I had gone out on the solstice because they had that grand double conjunction that year. And I went out on the solstice. I saw a silver light arcing up and through the two planets. And that was weird because I didn't even have binoculars. Somebody on the beach allowed us to borrow their binoculars. And I just so happened to look up there at the moment in time to see that light arcing up through them. And I was feeling, kind of full with all of that and all. And then Christmas morning, I went back to that same beach and did my thing. And then a couple of days after that, I went back to the beach, and I thought it was weird because I didn't expect anybody to be out. It was very overcast the whole night, but I had a really strong inclination that I needed to go to the beach that day. So I wasn't going to get in the water. It's wintertime. I went out there, and this man and woman came walking down the beach. I'm standing by the shore, just kind of meditating and looking at things, and just full wind is literally, it was so cold, the wind was whipping the tears out of my eyes. But this man and woman were walking down the beach, and they stopped in front of me to talk to me. And we were talking about the solstice and the things that are happening on planet Earth and the way things are shifting and all of that, and what a great time it is to be alive. And this man reached in his pocket and handed me three perfect sand dollars. And I wasn't even aware of the correlation of the spiritual meaning of sand dollars, but I thought it was significant. So I stopped right then. And he looked like Caesar Borgia, that the blonde, the brown hair, brown eyed, kind of ginger beard. He looked like a 50-year-old Jesus. I mean, I don't remember what his wife looked like, but he had the beard, the all of that. He looked like what Yeshua, that what they show us, what the Christian version of Yeshua should look like. He looked like that in his early 50s. But he reached in his pocket and handed me these three perfect sand dollars, and then they went on about their business down the beach. And when I stopped and looked up the meaning of the sand dollar, I just busted down crying like a baby. And as I was standing there crying like a baby, another person walked up there to me and struck up a conversation. And come to find out, she was a lady who we had a fabulous conversation till we got down to the very end. And come to find out, she had become a Jehovah's Witness recently. So once I let her know that, I was a disfellowship witness, she recoiled like, I done shot her mama or something. And the conversation ended, and we never contacted each other anymore. But it was just confirmation after confirmation after confirmation that yes, something did happen spiritually. Yes, I did go through some initiations. It really did work, whether I realized it or not, that I was on the path of the initiate. Like I said, and Yeshua said, greater things have I done than I have done will ye do. I ain't got no miracles and stuff yet, but again, we're still evolving and shifting, so I don't know what is going to happen. Let me see, King David. I saw that you had put something. Let me see. Hold on. You say you had a dream through the bushes. You saw a lion and a deer with horns, and a snake came and bowed to them. I honestly don't know. I would encourage you to look up the dream symbolism for a lion and a deer. Usually snakes mean enemies, but if the enemies are bowing to the lion and the deer, maybe they're going to cooperate. Maybe some folks in your soul group are going to have some kind of a conversion or enlightenment. I'm not sure. 'Cause I used to dream about huge snake. I dreamt about a big snake the other day, but I think it was more of a like a constrictor. It wasn't venomous. I dream more about spacecraft and stuff now. You say you saw a group of them yesterday late afternoon coming out of your building. That's crazy. You don't know. You just searched it up. Was it the Nande parakeets or the ibis, CC? Because the ibis is Thoth's bird, which that's why I said I had just asked for my ascended masters to come forward, and I got the I am discourses of Saint Germain came to me. The Christ Return Speaks His Truth and Anagram Mother of Jesus came to me, and then this ibis started visiting me on a daily basis for like a week. You were meant to meet her though. You left an imprint. Oh yeah. You said, wait a minute, I'm trying to say. You say you keep having the same vision repeatedly to warn you and it came true? Well, like I said, absolutely. When I see things now, I've learned to realize like if you see any kind of numbers that get your eye, whether they're repeating, sequential, or whatever, look up the spiritual meaning because it means something. When you see anything that you see that hit your head different, it look like a glitch in the matrix or something else, or you can't figure out why all of a sudden, like I said, during COVID, when I went to the Asian market, I had been in that market. I couldn't tell you how many times, but all of a sudden that day, I had a sudden, very strong urge to buy some tea. And so I looked at the bottom and I just randomly grabbed some tea they had on sale that was 99 cents. Got it home and come to find out it was chrysanthemum tea, which is what they were using to treat COVID patients with in Japan. I was sun gazing, doing my vitamin D, doing the chrysanthemum tea. Every out, like I said, my guides led me to everything I needed to do to stay safe and healthy during that time. Even though I didn't know nothing about none of that stuff that was going on, I had just made up my mind I was not going to allow fear to creep in and have me stuck in fear. I just went on, did what I needed to do. Yeah. I'm not really up on dream interpretation though, King David. So that's why I said I would encourage you to look at like look up the dream numbers. Your numbers three, yeah. I'm a life path three actually, and I've been a three girl since even before I understood the spiritual significance of life paths and numerology and all that. I'll do a lot of stuff by threes. If I'm putting ice cubes in my cup, it'll be by threes. If I'm doing this or that, it'll be by, is whenever I'm able to do something by threes, I do. Big time. And like I said, my life path is three. But anywho, yeah, that whole Revelation thing, the thing that gets me in Revelation 20 when it talks about Satan, the devil, being bound for 1,000 years and then let out for a time. Excuse me. And again, this ain't nothing that nobody done told me. This is just from reading the Bible and what I feel and what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing in meditation. If we look back through, keep saying I'm gonna do it. I've got to find that documentary that Myth Vision podcast did discussing the history of Yahweh, because if you really look at how Yahweh was moving and morphing around the world through different peoples and pantheons and stuff, things got really, really quiet around right around between 7, 8, 900 ish or so. And I believe they brought it out at some point in that podcast that somewhere around that time period, the church, the governments, the powers that were, however you want to look at, there's about a 300-year skip in time that they've chosen, they really can't account for. They just changed the time, just moved it by 300 years. But when you look at what was happening on the planet from about 8 or 900 AD up until about 1500 AD, or truthfully 15, 17, 18 ish or so, 100 AD, it was relatively quiet politically, militarily, religiously, art wise, everything. I mean, now supposedly our quote unquote Renaissance period started in around the 14 or 1500s, but before then, they called quite a bit of that history the Dark Ages. And I wonder, why was it dark? Because Yahweh might have been in that, might have been the time period that Yahweh was put out of commission. Again, we read all of this stuff like Yahweh is the big boss, the be all and the end all. And truthfully, he did have dominion over earth because Anu gave it to him, but he still had to answer to somebody. He was not sovereign Lord over all that don't have to answer to nobody. He had to answer to the seven who judge on Nibiru and to his father Anu. And he reached a point that he had showed his behind so bad on earth that he was exiled. He was bound. Now, it didn't say in those texts that he was bound for 1,000 years, but be it as to the fact that Ashar is 3,600 years to them. 1,000 years seems pretty reasonable of a time, and if they were going to let him out of exile, that very well could have happened. So, when it talks about Revelation chapter 20, you said you had the same thought this morning after meditation. I'm telling you, the unified field is feeding a lot of us the same things. When we get in folks that come up in the live stream and want to go to spewing their nonsense, that let me know they ain't tapped in, because no matter what religion you are, no matter which psychological, philosophical, whatever it is, path that you're coming down, if you're genuinely tapped into the unified field in meditation, a lot of us are starting to be cued into the same kinds of thoughts. Like I said, I'm not the only person that's having these realizations and saying these things and being felt the need to go back through the Bible, or being brought into studying the ancient text and the apocryphal text, the Babylonian text, and all of that stuff. I'm not the only one. You say you just missed it, like where it came from. No, it's important. But see, here I am to remind you of it, because Revelation said that he seized the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years and threw him into the pit and shut it and sealed it over him so that he might not deceive the nations any longer until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be released for a little while. That brings us right on up. Hold on a second. Y'all, I gotta get some more La Musica. Hang on. Let me see what they throwing up here. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's okay. Um, it said after that he must be released for a little while, but doesn't that kind of sort of bring us to 1844 and beyond? Has the world not become increasingly, like exponentially increasingly violent and scary, and like uh, Christianity, Islam, and all of them have been at each other's throats. They've been creating wars, just like at the end of Revelation, where it talks about all the wars and rumors of wars and the pestilences and the diseases and the violence and the sexual immorality and the read through Revelation from like 16 on. It talks about all of the things that will be happening towards this end time. But then it gets to 20 and saying that the reason that stuff is happening is because Satan, the devil, who had been previously harnessed, would be released for a little time so that he could basically test the nations again. It says, then I saw thrones, and seated on them were those to whom the authority to judge was committed. And I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for the testimony of Yeshua and for the word of the Elohim, and those who had not worshipped the beast or its image and had not received its mark on their foreheads or their hands. They came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. Now, again, I don't think the 1,000 years is necessarily literal, but in 21, he does talk about the one seated on the throne, Christ, is saying, right, behold, I'm making all things new. Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And it says that he will rule in peace for 1,000 years on earth. So it could be a literal thousand, but here's the thing. You say you thought, what if it was dark because they were peacefully living their lives and didn't write it down because they were focused on presence? Or literally, like I said, when think about when the military say they going dark. Doesn't mean that it's literally dark. It just means they ain't gonna tell you what's going on. And when you think about it, there was not a whole lot of literature coming out of that time. There was not a whole lot of musical advancement, not a whole lot of scientific discovery. There was not a whole lot of, like I said, religion. Everything was just kind of quiet. And truthfully, nobody could read. Not talking when I say nobody, 90% of the planet couldn't read. The church had already gone through its land grab, and like I said, they unalived 80 million people to establish Christianity on the earth. So after they did that, they done conquered the land, they done established Yahweh as this ruler. They just kind of chilled, was just kind of rocking on, doing their thing for about 1,000 years. You're taught in school that it was horrible during the time with illness, and it wasn't no worse than it was any other time. Look, listen to what it said was happening around the time of the flood. And Inky said they was having the same kind of conditions on Nibiru when they started looking for the gold and stuff. Same stuff, which is further proof that Yahweh's way doesn't work. It didn't work on Nibiru. It didn't work before the flood. It ain't worked for the 300,000 years previous to this. But they let it. They, like I said, they let him rock on up to this point. But now it reaches a point where, according to this book, and again, I'm not trying to put the church spin on it. We're just looking at the fact that under Luciferian law, they have to put certain things in there, even if they hide it in plain sight. So when they was busy culling all these old books, they put some of this stuff in here. But it says that Satan, the devil, the one who's been misleading humanity all this time, the ancient dragon, the serpent, he was bound for 1,000 years. He was thrown into the pit, and it was sealed so that he might not deceive the nations any longer until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be released for a little while so he can what? Go back to trying to deceive the nations. And again, like I said, what happened after 1844? All hell broke loose. There was a resurgence of so-called Christianity, and all these different religions was popping off all over the planet. And again, I'm not saying that's a good thing, because after all, Joseph Smith said that we were supposed to be black folks were supposed to be slaves, and all good Mormons was gonna get a whole planet full of virgins when they leave up off of Earth. Absolutely twisted thinking, but it was showing that some kind of activity or energy was happening again on this planet. And then the ones that were seated on the throne with Yeshua were given authority to judge because they were the ones who had been tortured, persecuted, and unalived for the testimony of Yeshua. Not the testimony of the church, not promoting Christianity, not even promoting Judaism. And if you think about it, go back through, really look at your Christian history. All of the stuff that they tell you is the saints, the martyrs, Joan of Arc, Francis Bacon, this one, that one, and the third one. Everybody that they call a martyr and or a saint, why were they unalived? It wasn't because they was meek, mild people that was doing what the church told them. Exactly the opposite. They were saying some pretty controversial things that the church didn't like, so the church silenced them. But those are the types of people, the ones who were bucking the status quo, that were not going along with Christianity, that were not going along with Judaism, who refused to worship the dragon. The ones that were unalive for that are the ones who the scriptures say will be ruling alongside Yeshua. Is the ones who had not worshipped the beast or its image and had not received its mark on their forehead or their hands. Now Christians think that that's them. Yeshua done told you, in that day, you're going to say to me, didn't we do this and that in your name? Didn't we prophesy in your name and perform works in your name and expel demons in your name? He told them, I'm going to tell you, I never knew you. You put my name on that mess, but I ain't had nothing to do with it. You've been doing exactly the opposite of what I told you to do. So whether you say you did it in my name or not, you've been worshiping the devil. I tried to tell you 2,000 years ago you was worshiping the devil. And ever since, I've had my faithful servants still trying to tell you, y'all was worshiping the devil. You keep unaliving my faithful servants and saying that they're evil and that they're going to hell and you're going to all of the rest of that stuff. But at the end of the day, like somebody said, the same pit that you're trying to throw us in is the one that's reserved for you. That's what the books say. They came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is the one who shares in the first resurrection. Over such, the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years. Now, here, I just had a thought that came through that I hadn't really thought exactly this way before. What if the first resurrection was like the waves of star seeds that were coming through to prepare for this massive awakening? In that they, like I said, we say all the time that for many of us, we know this ain't our first rodeo. Many of us understand that we are of the bloodline of Yeshua or of the order of Melchizedek. Many of us understand that. So what if this first resurrection that Revelation is talking about is talking about a reseeding of the planet with folks that are awakening with those ancient memories so that we can teach it, you know? The oracles, the prophets, the teachers, the scribes that are willing to buck the status quo and speak loudly about these things that are coming into the mainstream now. What if that is the first resurrection? And they're talking about Nasara and the med beds and life extension, and even scientists being able to extend life 100, 250, 300 years. What if those star seeds that were faithfully serving the chosen ones who answered the call? What if when we have first contact, we are taken to the med beds and our telomeres are uncapped so that our lifespans are extended right here and now so that we can be the ones who seed new earth and teach the upcoming generations these things that the religious leaders of yesterday refuse to see and will not teach. Exactly, we're here. We are the. Look, I didn't make it up. It's right here. It talks about The ones who were tortured for Yeshua's name, who are persecuted for Yeshua's name, who did not worship the beast, who did not receive the mark of the beast. We're talking completely different than what the rest of the world is. The sheeple is running their way off the cliff, and our poor little ragtag folks dare to say something different. And it said that this is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is the one who shares in the first resurrection. Over such, the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, or the priest of the Elohim, and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years, because they are becoming Christos in this time period, doing the spiritual work, doing the physical work, getting the body together, doing the fasting, doing the meditation, doing the breath work. And there will come a time where all of these energies have been ramping up on this planet. You will become Christos in this lifetime, working with the Elohim and the ascended masters. You said the question is half the answer. Exactly. Because again, we are creators. The fact that we believe it, as you believe it, so it will be. Just like they tried to march us to this biblical, they've been trying to march us to Armageddon ever since they printed this book, but they gave us a fearful meaning of Armageddon because they twisted the meaning of it. We're taking the same exact word they gave us and untying the knots and connecting the dots to understand what it really means, and understand that Revelation is not a fearsome book. It's just the end of the Anunnaki war. It's the end of the book. You say you sorry, you off topic. What, King David, where you at? You ain't really off topic. It's going around. It comes right back around. It's all good. Now let's get back over here. It says with the defeat of Satan, when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison and will come out to deceive the nations that are at the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. Their number is like the sand of the sea, and they marched up over the broad plain of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city. But fire came down from heaven and consumed them. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Yeah. And here's the thing. It said here, when the 1,000 years were ended, Satan will be released from his prison. So on the premise that we had before, if the 1,000 years began somewhere around, let's just say 800 for giggles, shall we? That's and I'm only choosing that because I said somewhere between 600 and 900. So we're going to choose 800 because it's easy. But 1,000 years on the other side of 800 will take you to where? 1,800, right? So what if that was the truth there? When the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison. Yeshua is here in the upper room preparing for all of that. But it said that Satan will be released from his prison to come out and deceive the nations that are at the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog. Well, they established Christianity around the planet before he got locked up. And it had been very quiet for almost 1,000 years. And then in 1800s, they ramping back up, and here they come with a renewal of the religions popping off, the Yahwistic religions, the Industrial Revolution, the warmongering, the fear mongering, the chemical poisoning, the mental poisoning, the psychological poisoning with television, radio, and the new God on the block media. All of those things popped off in due time, right after. Again, this is supposition on our part, but that's kind of sort of, if you look at history, at what actually happened, it's not that hard to imagine that this is why that stuff was happening. You say the battle is already won, but the path to it is being written. Exactly. It's telling you what's going to happen. It's giving you an opportunity to align what side of the issue you choose to be on. Yahweh has been deceiving humanity forever. And those who are trying to teach the difference are aligning with Yeshua and Lord Enki, because we understand it's not an issue of a burning hell or a heaven or any of the rest of that. It's about Remember, I've mentioned it before in the Lost Book of Enki. They said that within 2 showers of the flood, that there would be another cataclysm coming, just like they showed us in that book, that movie Knowing in 2009 with Nicolas Cage. They showed us there was a cataclysm coming, and the way it would be determined, well, in the movie it was something different. They just pulled off children based on them being kids, and a few adults was brought up with them to be able to teach the children and all that, but it was mostly children they were bringing up. But according to the end of this book, if all of this is going to end, if they're getting rid of Yahweh and cleaning up the earth and all the rest of that, maybe they found a way to prevent the cataclysm, or maybe this will happen before the cataclysm. But either way, the way to identify yourself for salvation would be an individual choice of how you choose to understand this and who you choose to align with. Hold on, let me see what we got here. What did story time say before? 600, Satan was released with the founding of fractional reserve banks in the 1600s. Could be, could be. And again, I mean, there's a few things that started happening around that time. That's why I said it's not even a hard fast, because there's also a 300-year chunk of time around that time that they just pulled off the calendar. So I can't say definitively what was the one definitive moment that marked the fact that Satan was active on the planet again. But sometime between 1600 and the middle 1800s, you can see things are beginning to ramp up. It's no longer quiet. It's no longer stagnant. Things were beginning to happen that would kind of sort of indicate that Satan was on the move again. You said you didn't know. And hey, yeah, story time. Yeah, welcome. I'm so sorry. Welcome, love. Talking about the Industrial Revolution that was underpinned by the banking system set up 200-300 years earlier. You said, is it a form of evaluation, Douglas? I don't even think it's so much evaluation. I think it's more of a culling of humanity based on those whose consciousness can expand. Because at this point, once upon a time, I bent my glasses and that's bothering me. I cannot get these straightened up for nothing in the world. I'm probably gonna wind up snapping the arms trying to get them to even up. But anyway, once upon a time, the Anunnaki, we had to be told apart because of, like I said, humans. One of the reasons Christians and Jews circumcised is because at once upon a time, the way to tell Anunnaki beings from Homo sapiens was by the foreskin. Anunnaki do not have a foreskin according to them. So Yahweh just hated humans and didn't really want us to look like different and all that. So they wound up being, oh, you said, okay. Yeah, I believe it is a form of evolution. We are expanding in our consciousness, but that's what I'm saying. I think in this day and time, the way we are identified, if you will, is by our ability and our willingness to turn off our worship gene and to be able to accept the information that's coming out here. I get it that our grandparents and our great grandparents didn't believe this and couldn't accept it, and they left. Like I said, they're going to pass on without ever waking up, and that's fine because they didn't have access to this information. But we're in the information age, in the age of Aquarius, in the golden age. We have all this information. They've been digging this stuff up out the ground for the past 200-300 years and translating it and amassing it into libraries and getting it out there online. So we do have access to it now. Folks don't have the luxury or an excuse to stay in the kind of ignorance that the planet has been under for the past 1,000 years. Like you said, 600-700 years ago, only 10% of the planet could read any language. So they genuinely could not be held accountable for what they couldn't know and understand and didn't have any access to. But now, thanks to the internet and archaeologists and anthropology and all the rest of that stuff, a lot of this information is spilling back out into the planet, and we no longer have an excuse to remain as ignorant as we've been. Yeah, it does look like the Renaissance period was kind of where he started ramping up again, story time for real. Like I say, and again, and even saying that doesn't negate what happened in 1844. And again, we don't know that was the exact year. That was the year the Millerites were looking for Yeshua to come. And I was just saying, if you really look at the 1800s, though, it really kind of started back in 1830 with Joseph Smith and the religious thing. But energy moves. It's not an instant turn a page on a calendar. So within a few decades, absolutely it could be. But it absolutely, in my opinion, looks like not the industrial revolution, the Renaissance period was where Yahweh was most likely beginning to ramp up again. But I will also say, so were the ascended masters. Look at all the Saint Germain stories we have that nobody wants to believe. There's Kuan Yin stories, Lord Himalaya, all these different ones. People look at the men and women who wrote the stories of the ascended masters like that's just lovely storytelling. It's fiction. The same way they told us that all of the ancient text was mythology. Yeah, don't pay no attention to that. It's not real. But that's the way humanity has been kept asleep. Now that we're not illiterate anymore. They told us it's all fiction, it's all mythology. They steadily rewriting history and putting whatever lies they want to in the current history books and telling you that everything you read in the ancient history books is a myth and a lie and fiction. And people are willing to accept that just because the government and the priest, the pastor, and the imam told you that. We got to cut that out. But the ones who are able to not be that complacent and ignorant, that are willing to look at the books and understand them for what they really say instead of ignoring them because the priest, pastor, and imams told us to ignore them, those are the ones that are going to rule with Yeshua. Those are the ones that are awakening and ascending. And like Douglas said, it's part of our evolution. You thought I had an auto correct situation? Okay. Yeah. Painting developed perspective, then image making is a core element of satanic distraction. But honestly, I wouldn't even, I'm grateful for a lot of the image making that happened story time through the Renaissance because they also were a link. How many of those Renaissance painters showed us what they remembered from the mystery schools when they started showing us things like the Black Madonna and the Black Yeshua and the pictures of him with the halo and all those sorts of things, the artworks that's showing the flying saucers in the night sky, even though they were like church done things. Now, yeah, there's a lot of serpentine and reptilian imagery through with all of the gargoyles and dragons and serpents and all that stuff they did in the artwork, but that means something too. So yeah, it is definitely showing what they was doing because I never could understand why did they need all them monsters and dragons and stuff all over churches and municipal buildings. But again, Yahweh was on the move. So even their artwork is beautiful, but it's grotesque. But it's beautiful, but it's grotesque. Right? A lot of it. Said when Gnosticism got vamped up as well. Yeah, it's just continued to spill on because you think about 1600s, 17, 18. Like I said, this is a 400-year span of time between the 1600s and now. So it's happening. I mean, I don't know why the church folk have such a hard time understanding this. They're still because they still want to look at it as something far off, or they're looking for Sky Daddy to swoop down and save them, which will happen according to this, but not the ones they think. The scriptures have clearly made it clear, very clear, that the vast majority of these people that think that they got it right, if they've been worshiping Satan, the devil, Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah, El, whatever you choose to call him, the ones that are putting their money on Allah, Yahweh, they're going off the cliff with him. It said, I saw a great white throne and him who was seated upon it. From his presence, earth and sky fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Then another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged by what was written in the books according to what they had done. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, Death and Hades gave up the dead who were in them, and they judged each one of them according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not found in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. Now, the book of life is for humans, the lake of fire is not. Even when it talks about the ones who were being resurrected and all of that, that they would be either resurrected to life or they would be judged. But like Yeshua said, his judgments are light and his Father judges not. But it still doesn't say that they was going to be destroyed if they didn't pass judgment. It's like when all of those near-death experiences, when people are having near-death experiences and they describe their judgment not being like a punishment, right or wrong. It's kind of like you get to be your own judge. You go and review when they have their life review. They have to experience the pain that they cause others through that person's eyes, and then they can learn it is for our soul growth. But I'm pretty sure when the new system roll out, for those that just absolutely refuse to get with the program and they still want to cling to the Yahweh lie, according to the scriptures, they'll be destroyed. Revelation says that the blood will run however many furlongs in the street, that a third of the population of humans on this planet will be destroyed because they're going to refuse to accept the new program. We can't even feel no type of way about that. They didn't accept it when Jesus came down here and told him directly out his own mouth themselves. They didn't accept it so much so that they put him to death for it. So we really don't need to think that these folks is doing the stuff that they doing now, and they're in their corruption and they're in their violence and their greed, and they caught up in making their money, and they all of the rampant orgiastic whatever nonsense, the depravity that's going on, they don't want to give that up. And because they don't want to give that up, they're not fit to live in new earth. They will be destroyed. And we shouldn't even feel bad because them same people be telling you about the pit you gonna go in, they will consign you to the pits of hell in a hot minute. So if they don't make the cut, that's on them, y'all. I'm glad you're here too, story time. Yeah, it has been a hot minute. Absolutely. You learn more in the few minutes you spent in here than the rest of YouTube combined. Awesome. Glad. Yep, nothing is all bad. And that's the part when they get now I'm not sure about the Bama seat. I'm really not, Niana. I'm gonna have to look that. Let me write that down so I can see what we're gonna come up with here. Let me take myself a note or two. Hold on. I gotta get to the right page in my book and see what I can come up with. And honestly, that's a good point though. When you mention story time, where you're saying nothing is all bad, there's always an upside of some kind. That's what people need to understand. And I get it, it's difficult when you're seeking to turn off your worship gene. It's not an instant process. And people have been so programmed within religion to believe it's all one thing is good and all of everything else is bad. So we get this idea. I had somebody the other day talk about the reptilians. Are the reptilians bad? Or are the Anunnaki bad? They're all Anunnaki. Some Anunnaki are reptilian, some are feline, some are humanoid, some are crystalline, and on and on and on. There are a lot of different planetary and star, or a lot of cosmic systems represented among the Anunnaki, because they allow folks to come in from all over the cosmos to come into their planet. And Atlantean is a name that they came up with. That was not because of some kind of heritage. The two factions on Nibiru that were displaced, their home world was literally blown up in the galactic wars. They could not return home. Their planet was destroyed. It died. So they found an uninhabited planet and settled there. They called it Nibiru. And after a while, they rocked on separately for a while, but they realized that they were beginning to have strife and confusion and all of that, and they wanted to unify themselves. So they basically chose a king from one. They said if the king, they were going to choose the king by lots. If the king came from the north, then they would by lots choose a queen from the south. If the king came from the south, they would choose a queen from the north. And they unified their people so that they could survive as a people. And they decided to call themselves the Atlanteans, but they were all kinds of nationalities, if you will, people from different star systems. So when we talk about, like I said, folks in different parts of the world, the Dogon talk about the Nomo, and somewhere over in the Samoan Islands and stuff, they talk about the Seven Sisters, the Pleiadians, and somebody else will be talking about the Arcturians, and somebody else will be talking about, they're coming from all over the place because Enki and Enlil did something very unusual. They dared to play God. They came into for real God's house, the creator of all. They literally did a home invasion in the creator of all's planet and came here and dared to shorten the evolutionary timeline by millions of years by creating Homo sapiens sapiens in a lab by merging their off-planet DNA with a hominid that they found here. We're kind of a big deal. We are a hybrid species. It was created by somebody other than the creator of all. And the cosmos got wind of it, and folks want to know, inquiring minds want to know, why you think we've been seeing UFOs in the sky ever since they had people with paper and language to write about it. Everybody from biblical times, Hindu times, the Babylonian times, everybody then talked about people that came from the sky. But ignorant behind humans in the 20th century want to sit there and look down their arrogant noses and declare that all of that's fake, that didn't really happen. How stupid can you be? Like, for real. Look, humans are stupid because the preachers told you that none of that other stuff is real. People been writing about it literally for 300,000 years on this planet. But because a preacher told you that ain't real, don't look at it, and your government told you that ain't real, don't look at it, then you just decided that none of that's real and we're not going to look at it. Like, really? You really think that that your government and church got your best interest at heart? That's naive. No, again, sorry to be offensive, but not sorry. That's just plain stupid. You said, can there be good without the bad? Kind of, sort of. Not. I mean, I get what you're saying to a degree, Niana. Bad is what we consider bad is basically the collateral damage of the creation of good, truthfully, because for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. We do operate under some universal laws here. So when the creator, when there's a pushing off point of what you would consider good, yes, there is a negative polarity that comes with it. But humans don't have to choose that. We don't. And again, flawed humans in their flawed thinking think that because there always has been evil that we have to have it. My son and I have had that debate several times. He really does not feel like that there will ever be a time where we'll have peace because somebody gonna always want to act up and start that whole cascade towards evil again. To which I say they might, but they'll be dispatched quickly. And so according to him, getting rid of evildoers amongst you makes you evil. No, it don't. It means you're going to police yourselves fairly and appropriately, not according to who got the most money or the best lawyer or whatever. It's going to go back to kind of sort of where it was before, that wrongdoing will be dealt with expeditiously and across the board uniformly, to where people actually understand that this isn't going to be it's not going to be tolerated. You know what? First of all, East Side Chapter 17, you coming in here talking some ghetto fabulous nonsense, talking about what something look goofy AF and what you put on your mama. I don't give a rat's but what you put on your mama. Women been wearing bindi on their heads for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. If you knew the significance, the spiritual significance of a bindi, you sit your ignorant self down somewhere and be very, very quiet. That's what you would do, Eastside. I'm just saying. You just made yourself look real stupid. So put that on your mama. How about that? Because I don't care about you or your mama. That's the thing. What you don't understand, my guides didn't. I don't take direction from you and your mama. I dress the way I want to. You can go online and find any number of live streams, people drawing on their faces with crayons, women up here with their titties out, other people sitting up there that tattooed themselves and put rings through their noses and their lips and everything else. And you gonna sit here and thought you was gonna be Miss Slick or Mr. or Miss Slick and come here and got something to say because I choose to wear a bindi, an age-old sign of Hinduism. And again, I'm not religiously Hindu, but my main guides are Yeshua and Lord Shiva. Enki is Lord Shiva in the Hindu pantheon, and as such, it is spiritually appropriate if I choose to, for me to adorn and or cover and or protect my third eye by wearing a bindi, which is what I choose to do. So you just made yourself look goofy AF, Eastside chapter 17. You said the UFO has been here for a long, ever since. Like I said, Renaissance art have UFOs all over it. The book of Ezekiel tell you about the wheel within the wheel and all of that stuff. That's a UFO they're describing. The Vedic texts that are 10,000 years old talk about the sky people and them riding around in Vimana right here on this planet. And we've been reading in the Lost Book of Enki. And again, that's not a fiction work, that's a translation of some tablets they dug up out the ground. And they were talking about the bond heaven earth and the sky chariot, the celestial chariots, the celestial boats, and things that the whirlwind. And if you go to Egypt and look at the reliefs up there, they got stuff that look like helicopters and spaceships and UFOs right in the Egyptian artwork on the walls in the pyramids, y'all. And if you go down to the Incan and Mayan lands, you'll see the same thing. The artwork style is different because of the Mayan style of artwork, but they show the same things. You say you're grateful for Rembrandt, by the way, and that's a function of who he was rather than the subject matter. The subject of art can't ever be enough. There always needs to be more going on than that. Humans are made to create, period. That's one of the reasons why I could never get with the idea that God created the heavens and the earth and he rested on the seventh day and he never did nothing else. If we're made in so-called God's image and he did all of this creation with all of the intricate detail that he put here, look at the design, the way a bird's feather, separate those little Velcro like hooks in between a bird's feather. Look at a fly's eyeball. Look at how bees behave, the aerodynamics of a bee. Look at now I really would love to have a conversation about the platypus with God. I don't know about the platypus. That just defies all of everything. But that's what I'm saying. All of the design and the creation that the creator of all actually did. And even if you look at what Enki and them did by modifying our DNA, how wonderfully we're made. And we really thought that the creator of all put all of this stuff here in this much detail on earth and plunked us down in a galaxy full of hundreds of thousands of stars. And our galaxy ain't even a big galaxy. There's thousands and thousands of galaxies out there. And we really naive or arrogant enough to think that creator didn't create anything else after us, that we were just the pinnacle and the be all and end all of all the creator of all's creations. We can't stop creating. And reason I know, we got Labubus and Cabbage Patch dolls and, you know, ignorant stuff that don't even make no sense. And we have some beautiful things that do make some sense, but I'm just saying, as humans, as faulty humans, a 500,000 years away from perfection, we can't stop creating. We don't have no reason or right to think that the creator of all made us and that's it, that there's no other sentient life out there nowhere, that he didn't create nothing else nowhere. He just made us because it was bored and it was a random Tuesday, and he put earth here and put us on it, and then he just sat on his hands forevermore. Like, for real? That's so saying, that level of arrogance and ignorance that is religion always made me go like say, for real, Lord? How stupid can you be? That part. But yeah, Miss Brooklyn Miss, I enjoyed this tonight. It is after midnight, y'all. I have got to get myself rolling so that I can get myself together. I'm gonna try. Let's see. I'll try to duck in here on Tuesday. I'm gonna see. It depends on what I can prepare for us. I am gonna start reading back through the Lost Book of Inky. Maybe we'll jump on Tuesday night and discuss a little bit of that. But yeah, I appreciate you all tonight. I have had a wonderful time, but it is after midnight and I gotta bounce. So I do thank you all that joined, even the trolls. Peace and blessings to you, soul family. I love you so much. And until next time, be good. And if you can't be good, you know the rest. I love you. Namaste.